when ballooning was a big fad and incredibly popular. He was trying to fly his balloon out of Paris, and he was subject to the world's first piece of air rage when the Dupont de Chambon, a French a very senior person, shut up, a contemporary of Napoleon, attacked him and his balloon with his sword because he was refused a place on it. It sounds a bit like Dana not getting his jump seat ride.
But I think he should have crossed the channel in that balloon, eating a sheep, a duck, and a chicken.
Well, then it very nearly didn't make it. As they approached the French coast, they were getting lower and lower, and they only made it by throwing lots of things out. The last thing they threw out were Blanchard's trousers, and apparently that gave them enough lift to get across the channel.
Yeah, sometimes I get a great lift when I take off my trousers too.
Billy.
I was just wondering what was in his trousers that made them so heavy. But
speaking of great lift and trousers, I need to get Dana a couple of pills now that I remember.
Just so everybody knows, we are live.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Everybody was really just fascinated by that discussion about nothing heavier than air ballooning.
Yeah, and the very first person to die in an air accident?
I don't know.
Jean-Francois Pilatre de Rosier.
I was going to say him, but I wasn't sure. So
that was right on the tip of my tongue, Jeff. I mean, I agree with you.
Yeah,
he and a French army officer were killed when he tried to fly his balloon, which was filled with hydrogen and then heated with hot air from a fire.
Wow.
Yes.
Well, wait! Wasn't there a Frenchman that tried to jump off a cliff or something with wings on his arms? Trying to make a bird?
I've seen a movie of a bloke jumping off the Eiffel Tower and not flying. I think there were quite a few that tried that and didn't manage.
Yeah.
But Rosier blew up. And funnily enough, he already knew what hydrogen was capable of doing. He famously took a gulp of it and then blew out over a flame and removed most of his facial hair.
Permanently.
No, well, I don't know. I think it tends to grow back, but
hello everyone on YouTube and on Facebook. Looks like we are green light on both.
All right, I need to turn on my Facebooky thing. If you've got a link handy, old chap.
Thank you.
Yeah, hang on.
No, I can try and find it. Don't worry.
I can get it. Hang on.
Thank you.
Oh, well, maybe not. Hang on. Okay. Liz says she's ready when we are. We're kind of still waiting for Miss Stephanie. View on Facebook.
Has she given us an update on ETA?
Hey, if Steph's not going on, I'm not going on.
There we go. We'll turn that off and copy this. And then very nice burp. Thank you very much. And I'll put it in the chat, Nick.
Oh,
not the chat, but the
private chat.
Private chat. Yeah, the APG crew. And boom. There we go. Do you see that, sir?
I'm looking in private chat. Nothing's arrived.
Not private chat, but in our APG, our normal messages.
Messages.
Hang on. I just sent it to Micah.
Hey, Mike, you send me that link, please, mate.
Okay, wait, no, I got it. Now it's going to the APG crew chat.
I got it. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, be home in 15. She was held up by a coworker on the way out the door and had to stop for gas.
Oh, she was robbed? Oh, no.
Not really sure she means robbed, held up. Not that kind of held up. That's an extreme held up.
That is very extreme.
Yeah, we don't want that for poor Dr. Steph.
Yeah.
I'll save
that. Okay.
I'll delete it. I'll embed it.
All right. Well, I hope everybody is doing just peachy keen in the chat rooms of both platforms. Looks like we have here. I'm going to scroll backwards. It's going to be we have Dana and we have Micah and we have Nick. Uber Frank. Hello, Uber Frank. Thanks again for. I was thinking back fondly of all the great times we had in Oshkosh in July, and you were a big part of it, sir, Uber Frank. I mean, you are just a hero in our mind because you really helped us get around, and logistics is Uber Frank's, I guess, one of his best characteristics. Great logistical person.
Absolutely. Very nice chap.
Let's see. We have Liz Piper. I've never heard of her. Ken Hayes, Greg Peterson, the very large donkey fans guy. Somebody nudge Jeff and wake him up. Oh, I was kind of falling asleep when Nick was reading whatever he was reading. Owen in Facebook chat. Neville Bounds in Facebook. And Simon Vett. And Christian Bass. And Sean Hathaway. Hello, all you Facebookers. Hope your experience there is as good as it is in the YouTube world. And just out of curiosity, well, probably not a good question to ask at this moment, but I'm just wondering why you chose the Facebook platform over YouTube. Kind of curious. But let's see. Tim Van Ram over on Facebook. Frank was the first one we met at Oshkosh, and he was so darn helpful. Yes, he was.
Let me just say that Max Flight just joined us in the YouTube chat room. And,
hello, Max Flight.
Wish him a recovery. He had a little, I don't know if it's public knowledge, but I'm going to make it public. He had a little minor surgery yesterday, and hopefully he's doing okay. I'm sure he is because he's here with us. So
yeah,
Max is watching. We've got to make sure the show goes really well.
Oh, well, we have a 50% chance of it.
55.5.
Well, we have some of the airplane geeks karma sitting next to Dana, so maybe that'll help us get
exactly.
Well,
that's why I went to 55.5.
There you go.
As I've said before, my karma ran over my dogma.
Oh, that's a shame. That is a shame.
Right.
Okay. So if you're just joining us live on either Facebook or YouTube, we are not actually recording at the moment. Actually, now we'll wait for Steph because she'll want to start her recorder as well. I was going to say we can start our recorders and do our clacking and all that kind of stuff, but that doesn't.
Max Flight, you're using this as an excuse, so you didn't have to come see me because you came and saw Jeff up here.
Well, he didn't come up there to see me, Dana.
Yes, he did.
No, he did not. He went up to see, and that's fine. He went. I completely understand. He went up to go look at the warbirds up in Auburn, Lewiston.
Yep, I know why. I was just trying to inflate your head a little bit and give Max a little bit of.
Well, speaking of inflated heads, Steph says it'll be 60% when she gets there. Well,
I think more like 58.5.
I think it goes down to about 46, maybe 45%.
Oh, okay. Sean says Facebook. He picked Facebook because it notified him first. And I also find it's an easier platform. Hey, if you have any tips on finding easier platforms, send me a private message, please.
Yeah, if you want to catch a train, the easier platform is the best one to be on.
If you find anything easier for Jeff, make sure you send him a message.
Yeah, I need a private message.
Yeah, Dana's already found out that I'm easy, but that's something else.
Yeah, well, remember we weren't going to talk about that on the show.
We're just being such curmudgeons. Oy vey.
Oy vey. So shall we say our Jewish podcasting representatives?
When we got this working, with the new Focusrite and everything, which took us a little bit to get going, but we got it going. I said to Dana, I said, "You see what two Jew boys can do when they get together?"
More than kibbutz.
I'm offended by that.
Well, you can't really say Jew boys on the show because we get too many emails and letters.
Too late.
What they do is they say, "How come you didn't say Jew bastard?"
That's what you hear in New York.
Oh my! Where do you come up with this stuff, Micah?
Yeah, well,
hey, the jokes are free, but you get what you pay for.
Liz, remind me. we'll need to put an explicit tag on this particular
Oh, yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah.
I thought you would be here. That's what the name of the show should be here.
Well, you were right.
I'm not going to do a thing picture of Jews because that's going to be like deep water.
Oh, that reminds me. Let me see if this
Yeah,
works.
you have the Mossad after you.
Can you guys give my son Henry, age 5, a shout out, please? He is airplane crazy. He wants to be a fighter pilot when he grows up. What did he do? Bump his head on something?
Andrew, tell him he can't do both. He can be a fighter pilot or he can grow up, but he can't do both.
As demonstrated by Captain Nick.
Yeah, absolutely.
Actually. Well,
shout out to Henry. Hi,
Henry.
Hey,
Henry.
Right. Go for it.
Why don't you learn to fly real airplanes, Henry?
Oh boy. I
just imagine what you'll be looking like with a sparrow stuck up your backside.
A who? Is that a poor bird?
Yeah, you would think that. It would, a missile the size of a telegraph pole.
Oh,
that's what she said.
There you go.
They do say size matters as far as missiles go.
Thank you, Liz. I got your message, and I fully intend to make sure that we do not forget that piece of audio feedback. I'm thinking we'll do that during the getting to know you portion of the show. What do you think? Awaiting now the response from our producer in Toronto, Ontario, Canada.
And who's that? That's the lovely Liz Piper.
The lovely Liz Piper.
The lovely absent Liz Piper last week.
Oh, no, she was there for some of it. Oh, for you. I see what you're saying. Jeff Nielsen, no need for explicit tag for the audio. Not sure how picky YouTube is about that. I don't think
love you, Liz.
Cares, actually. I was kind of joking, Ken. Thank you, though.
Uber Frank, we're in rare form because it's early and Nick's actually awake. Just responding to what he said in the chat room.
Gotcha. So is that her car and then a police car pulling her over? Is that what those things are? I can't really. It's so small.
You're probably right.
That's no good.
Need to get her a radar detector.
Tell the officer that we are, you're late for the show. By the way, hard out at 6. Actually, a little bit before 6 because I'm having dinner with my youngest, Miss Natalie.
She's wonderful.
She started her job. She's in her 3rd week at PricewaterhouseCoopers, and she is auditing a local IT company in Alpharetta.
How's she liking the job?
I think she's liking it okay. She's still kind of trying to transition into it and, doing all the indoctrinating and all, the picking out, benefits and all that kind of stuff. So she's still pretty busy and hectic and all that kind of stuff. So, but I'm going to find out. I'll ask her when I dine with her tonight how she likes it. But I think she's still a bit overwhelmed with everything, including her new apartment and all the adult things that happen to all of us when it comes to turning on various services. And
you don't want to make this an explicit show. Let's not talk about
yeah, exactly. Hello, Jeffrey Gebhardt. Go ahead and start. I will seamlessly blend it. No, what do you think, Steph? How much longer do you think it's going to be for you?
Well, it's just replying, I'm going to get another brew dog.
Okay, you do that.
I was thinking I was going for a refresh.
I'm good with me.
Sure, just leave me here by myself. Thanks.
Hang with you, Jeff.
Okay.
That's if I don't mute you first.
Toronto, because we all know it's pronounced Toronto. Oh, okay.
So good.
Good. I'll pronounce it Toronto now.
You know what they say? It's better to live in Toronto than to go to a place you don't want to.
Is that what they really say, Micah?
That's what I've heard.
Oh, 8 minutes. That's not bad stuff. Actually, and we're going to do the start off with the news thing. I know Micah does not like that, but sorry.
Not my preference, not my show. I'm perfectly fine with it. I'm happy to be a guest.
Okay. So we might, we've been getting a lot of positive feedback starting with the news right off the bat. So, and tell Dana that he's doing a great job of making a lot of noise.
Well, that's because this isn't the real show yet. This is the pre-show. Ice is important.
Yes, true.
We're trying to keep it cool.
My God, I think he's trying to make a lot of noise. Is what he's doing. Didn't you used to do the show by yourself, Jeff? Yes, Jen, I did. For what, 6 years? I think. Yeah.
That's quite a unique device.
Well, when you don't use ice a
Oh,
lot,
thank you, Caleb. Yes, that's true. All of you are with me.
there's a little fill line at the bottom.
I love you all.
If you hold it up straight, look at the side. Hold it
Oh,
straight up
that's
and down.
so nice, Nick.
Look at the
I see
side
that
of it.
you got some dental work done.
Yes. I don't know how it's going to affect the audio.
It affects it negatively.
All right.
I wouldn't do the whole show with it on, although I don't think that you will. But that's an
Well, it's
interesting.
not quite Halloween yet.
What
Yeah,
is that?
little-
Like a gorilla mask? Gold-plated
Maybe-
gorilla? What is that?
like a
No, it's supposed to be half a skull, but
Oh, okay.
Here, I'll get it.
I see.
Oh, okay, you got it.
Very nice.
that's better. Oh, it's still on. Oh, there we go.
Because if you fill it too much, then you
Okay,
can't
so
take it out.
as soon as Dana and Micah are ready, we'll go ahead and start, and then Steph will probably still be in the news items when you
Cool.
join us, and I'll hopefully see you in the video thumbnails at the bottom there.
You want to
And
do a
Liz,
clap?
you're feel free to. Oh, that's right. How are we going to do this? If she joins us later, she can just start the recorder whenever she gets home, and then if necessary, I can figure out how to get it all matched together. What was I saying? Oh, Liz, if you want, you can use that URL and join us. I just won't click on your image, and then you can be part of our group here. It's up to you if you want to do that. Back at last, APG 397. Here, I gotta make yours the. Here we go. Take me, please. Director, left a bit. Campaign for real me.
Real ale.
Oh, real ale. I'm sorry.
Camera's an actual thing. The campaign for real ale.
Oh, the campaign for real. That's right.
There you go.
Camera. Although I don't think it has an E, right?
Probably not.
Yeah.
Real. Well, ale has an E.
No, I mean, you know what I mean.
I know exactly what you mean.
Okay.
Sadly.
All right. So I'm going to hit the recorder button.
Yeah,
I hear
I'm a minute in already.
I've been
Lovely.
on for. That's not what I wanted.
Oh, did you put? You
Wait,
got it
I'm
back
waiting for the
together, I
count.
think.
Hold on.
Okay.
I have.
I thought you said it was on.
It was on. There we go.
Now it's on. You gonna clap? I won't then.
We
Okay.
can all clap.
Yeah. Come on, join the fun. Everybody in the chat room, I want you all to clap as well.
I just don't want to foul it up by
Okay.
having.
Oh, you
two-
won't. Trust me,
You
it doesn't. None of this really matters. So, Airline Pilot Guy, episode 397 in 3, 2, 1. There you go.
Not even close.
Not even close.
Not even remotely close.
Hey, look, Jeff Gebhardt took directions. He did it too.
Good chap.
Excellent. I hope you clapped as well. Oh, there's
Jeff
Mark
has to
Jennings with
clap?
his clap. I hear.
Mark Jennings has the clap.
Yeah, sorry to hear about that, Mark. Oh boy, we make ourselves. We crack up ourselves, don't we?
Oh, we
Yes,
do. You know,
we
we're the only people who do it.
I know.
We're the only one laughing. That's the sad part.
Okay, so let me do a sound check with the audio.
You're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show.
The view from our side of the cockpit door.
Volume okay on that?
Yes.
Okay, and then over here,
No, I prefer Siemens.
that's kind of not loud enough. I'm sorry.
Little things, please, little minds.
Hey, Jeff.
Yeah.
How many? I don't even want to ask. I'm not even going to ask. I'm not going to even
Okay.
ask.
All right.
I was going to ask, but I'm not going to eat because I probably already know the answer.
I have not been drinking.
Right.
That's your question. I haven't.
Right.
I have.
Oh, yeah.
LaCroix.
LaCroix. Yeah. Is
Yeah.
that Spike LaCroix?
No. I have not had a drop of alcohol since I got up this morning.
Well, that's okay because we have.
Good.
Well,
Okay. So we have Radio Roger doing our intro for us today. So, Liz, if you're ready, we will go ahead and start the show. It's a very, very, what did he say? A very, very good show. No. What did he say, Micah? Ed Sullivan.
A really big show.
A really big show.
You're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show.
The view from our side of the cockpit door.
That's the wrong one. Oh, by the way, I'm going to intersperse within the show today things like
I'm Radio Roger, and you're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show.
and
just in case
let's
people
see.
have forgotten. What have we all got dementia?
No, this show is on a stream, a worldwide 24-hour
God, no. I'm going to
radio
get no
station.
way right now.
the No Agenda stream. It has a bunch of great high quality podcasts, and we're amongst that group of shows. And they were saying that it might be a nice idea every now and then, especially if it's kind of a long format show, that we put in a station ID basically to let people know when they just happen to turn the stream on
So
what it
it's
is they're listening to.
Station ID. So everyone
Station.
listening to the stream.
There you go. And by the way, if you're out there and you want to make your own station ID, you're more than welcome to. Just try to make it as high quality as possible if you don't mind.
And use Airline Pilot Guy. Don't use your own station.
Yeah, our station.
Just
Not
stating
yours.
the obvious there.
Well, that's right. They can do that if they want. I just won't play it.
That's right.
Can I do one? Can I do one? Can I do one?
Yes,
Can I
please.
do one? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And do all those like sound effects like this one.
You're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show.
The view from our side of the cockpit door.
Okay, if you want.
Excellent.
I think you'll have a lot of fun with that. Actually,
I will. I shall
Yep.
take a day off to do that.
Okay, a day off of retirement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So now I'm going to push the proper button, the one that has Radio Roger actually saying something about our show today. So take it away, Roger, in 3, 2, 1.
You're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show.
The view from our side of the cockpit door.
Airline Pilot Guy episode 397.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Hello, you're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show, the view from our side of the cockpit door, with your host, Captain Jeff, broadcasting live from Studio 1A at APG headquarters in Roswell, Georgia. Today's show is recorded on the 24th of October, 2019.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the Airline Pilot Guy. Get your ride and it's flying by. With the Airline Pilot Guy.
In today's episode, an Alaska Airlines flight overruns the runway, killing a passenger. And Qantas makes history. More news, your feedback, and in today's Plane Tales, pursuit across the channel. So get all settled in. Tray tables and seat backs in the upright and locked positions. Electronic devices powered on. I'm Radio Roger, and Flight 397 is ready for pushback.
Thank you, Radio Roger, Emmy award-winning TV and radio reporter, currently at the #1 all-news station in the nation, 1010 Wins, New York City. Welcome to the Airline Pilot Guy Show, podcasting aviation for more than 10 years now, covering the latest aviation news and answering your feedback. I'm Captain Jeff, former U.S. Air Force pilot and currently a captain for a major U.S. legacy airline based in Atlanta, and I like to call it Acme Airlines. And also today we're joined by from his studio in the English countryside, professional photographer, former RAF fighter pilot, former captain for an international airline based in London. It's Captain Nick.
Well, good evening, Captain Jeff, and the rest of the crew will be pitching up in dribs and drabs, probably more dribs than drabs. Great to be on the show here from the United Kingdom, and I'm looking forward to a good one.
Yes, dribbling our way through aviation. And also joining us from the Main Man Micah Kitchen Studio in Portland, Maine, barbecue master, motorcycle rider, pontoon boat skipper, underwater photographer, and captain for a major U.S. legacy airline. He's Captain Dana.
Well, fantastic afternoon to everybody up here in the wonderful studios, the Main Man Micah, enjoying it's an absolutely perfect fall day up in here in the Maine area. However, we're very happy to be in here and podcasting this wonderful show with you guys today.
Are you saying we for some reason, like maybe we also have from the Main Man Micah Kitchen Studio sitting right next to Captain Dana, aviation podcaster, radio personality, and APG community member extraordinaire, Main Man Micah.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for having me on, Jeff. Hi, Nick. Great to have Dana up here, back in the kitchen studios. You know, it's the first time he and I has done a show from here, but Jeff, as you know, the kitchen studio always has lots of snacks and lots of fun. And so here we are for another Airline Pilot Guy show.
Yes, indeed. Well, happy to. Yes.
Go ahead. I was going to say, and I even showed up and he even called me honey. He gave me this really fancy bottle of local honey. So he
called me honey, and that had nothing to do with the stuff in the bottle.
See, he has this special honey for me.
Yes, and he also called me darling, and
well, you know me. Some people have called me a podcast squatter, but in some ways, I'm a podcast. I won't say it.
All right. Well, later in the show, we're going to talk about what we've been up to between or since the last episode, but we're going to get right on into the news right now, as soon as I can find the button to push. Here we go.
Stand by for news.
From the Aviation Herald, a Peninsula Airways Saab 2000 on behalf of Alaska Airlines was flying or performing Flight 3296 from Anchorage, Alaska to Unalaska. With 38 passengers and 3 crew, they overran the end of the runway while landing on Unalaska's Dutch Harbor Runway 13 at 17:34 local time. The aircraft came to a stop about 125 meters, or about 400 feet past the end of the runway, partially hanging down a slope into the sea. The left-hand propeller blades had contacted some obstacles. Blades impacted and penetrated the fuselage. 1 passenger died as a result of the accident. 2 passengers received serious injuries. 5 received minor injuries. 1 injured passenger was flown out to Anchorage. A total of 11 passengers were taken to a hospital. The NTSB has started an investigation, and local authorities reported that all members of a youth swim team on board the aircraft and their, what do you call them? The people
coaches?
No.
Chaperones.
That's it. Chaperones. Ding, 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 ding.
Ding, ding, ding. We're at 100% now.
Yes. Well, for a very brief moment.
Yes.
The chaperones and the swim team, none were injured or killed on that flight. So, let's see. A ground observer reported the aircraft had attempted landing on runway 13, overflying Hog Island, first flying with the wind, but went around and positioned for another approach to runway 13 again, and with the wind. And by the way, at about 15 minutes past the time that we think that they were attempting the approaches, the wind was 300 degrees 21, gusting 27 knots.
Woo!
They touched down, but did not stop. There was deceleration, however, again, according to a ground observer. Unalaska resident Randy Batten told KTUU, I guess that must be a local news affiliate, he and his wife were walking their dog along the road that runs near the runway when they saw an approaching plane. It was a little windy, but I didn't think it was that bad. For some reason, he aborted his first attempt to land and flew over us to come around again to make another attempt. He said he and his wife then drove the short distance to their home, which overlooks the airport. They arrived home just as the crash happened. We heard a screech of rubber and a bunch of scraping of metal, and we knew right away it was probably that plane that we had seen doing the flyover on the first attempt. A medevac aircraft departed Cold Bay, Alaska, about 90 minutes after the occurrence and landed in Alaska about 2 hours and 20 minutes after the occurrence. The medevac aircraft departed for Anchorage after 90 minutes on the ground. And that was the aircraft that carried one of the injured passengers to Anchorage for further treatment. Okay, I'll stop reading the article from Aviation Herald, and we'll just start talking about this. So the first thing to know is that this airport, this island, is part of the Aleutian chain of islands on the Bering Sea, and I have a little bit of experience flying to a different island there, Shemya. There was I think there still is an Air Force base there, but at least there was when I was flying back in the 80s, and the weather there is always horrible, basically. Bad ceilings, visibilities, very high winds, and it's a very challenging place to fly. And the only instrument approach they have, as far as I know, going into this airport is an RNAV approach, RNAV GPS-B, and it comes in from the north. And I included the approach plate in the show notes, guys. Did you see that? Were you able to open that up?
I don't think I scrolled down that far.
Okay. Well, anyway, or there might be a link or something
No,
where you can
I
open
don't
it up.
see him.
Okay. Nick, do you see anything?
Not yet. Yes,
All
I
right.
do. There's a PDF there. I've got it.
Yeah, it's a PDF, and it should open up, and you can see the RNAV GPS-B. It approaches the island from the north, and then it comes in, and as you'll see on the approach plate, very high terrain. All the Aleutian Islands, as far as I know, are very, I guess it's part of a volcanic formed geographic landmass, the whole Aleutian chain. And the airport is like just a few feet above sea level. So essentially sea level. And just to the northeast of the airport is a hill, I guess we could call it, 1,700 feet. Down here where I live, that would be a mountain. And that's something that's depicted in white. Now, when we start looking at the brown shaded areas, which are all very, very close to this Dutch Harbor airport, some of these peaks are going up to 7,000 feet and above, I believe. So that kind of gives you the picture there that this is a very difficult place to get into. And if you were to land into the wind, you would have to do the circling approach to the southwest of the airport because of the peaks to the northeast of the airport. And it had to be a very tight approach because, again, you have terrain just to the south of the airport as well. So apparently they made the decision to come in from the northwest and land to the southeast with the wind. And as I mentioned, not too long after this incident occurred, the winds were gusting to 27 knots. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they were that high when they landed, but I'm sure they had some sort of a tailwind there. The runway is only 4,500 feet long by 100 feet wide, so it's not a lot of runway. The airplane, though, is a turboprop, a Saab 2000. I don't know, Dana, you probably flew something that was very similar in performance when you were at the regional airlines.
Well, actually, I was working for a regional airlines, an airline called Business Express that had the Saab 340, which is the smaller version of this. And what's going through my mind is a 4,500 foot runway is more than enough space, especially with the ability to go into beta to stop the aircraft. I think what there are a couple probable causal factors here. Of course, the winds obviously cause them to be a little, fast on the ground speed. And also, if they had touched down late in the touchdown zone, certainly would cause them to overrun the runway. So
yeah, because maybe with a really high tailwind, you'd tend to float longer down the runway than you would normally be used to.
And your speed over the ground is much, It's going to be your perceived speed is going to be relatively normal, but your actual speed over the ground, because you get a tailwind pushing you down the runway, is going to be a little hotter. And so I think that's probably what happened. Not only that, there was light rain, so I don't know if there was any issues with the moisture being on the runway, but of course that would affect the stopping distance as well.
Mm-hmm.
And not to throw any irony on it, but taking a look at the photographs here in the attachment you gave us here, just to describe it, you've got the picture of the Saab 2000 just off the end of the runway, and ironically off the left-hand wing, there's a stop sign that stopped just before.
Hmm.
Yeah, I just had to point out that irony. But
It is
yeah,
ironic, yes.
It's very ironic, because right at the leading edge of the right, what would be the right wing, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the left side of the photo, of the right wing is a stop sign right in front of the leading edge of the wing, out towards the wingtip.
You know, when I first looked at these photos, I did not see the left side of the airplane where the blades had penetrated the fuselage, and I was kind of scratching my head looking at it, thinking, "Well, how in the world could anybody have died in this accident, or even be seriously or critically injured?" And then, of course, when I read from the Aviation article news source, the fact that the left propeller or propeller blades had hit something when they were doing the excursion, and then that forced the separation of the blades and into the fuselage. And then I saw that picture that I have listed at the top, and I went, "Oh, okay, now I understand why that happened."
Yeah, and I think probably, honestly, on purpose, they did not publish any photos of the other side of the aircraft, because I'm sure there's some gruesome scene there. So
did I miss something, or
are we looking at the other side of the aircraft?
Yeah, we're looking at the left side, and I don't see anything gruesome there. I just see some marks where the propellers entered.
I don't see the left side of the aircraft at all.
Oh, okay. So it's the very first thing that I have in on the article before you see.
Oh, okay. The very first photo. I was down in the bottom photos. I'm sorry. Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's very little.
Right, but at least you can see where the marks are, where the propellers did penetrate the cabin.
I was going to ask, because I don't know if I missed something. Do we know why they came in with a tailwind and they didn't come in from the other angle?
Well, so this is one of those places that it's a very difficult place to come into, because you have very little room to do a circling maneuver. It's a visual maneuver, and in fact, before they can even start the approach, they have to contact a qualified weather observer at the airport, and he has to describe or he or she has to describe what the weather conditions are right at the airport, because I guess they can be so different than even the weather that's out over the open water when they're starting the approach. And so we don't know all the details yet. They may have said, there's some obscuration, some fog south of the airport. Do not recommend a circle approach to the northwest runway. And so they had to make that judgment call whether to try to maneuver in those very difficult conditions, or whether to go ahead and attempt an approach with a big tailwind. So,
because I'm used to operating with a very strict tailwind limit for landing and takeoff. Come to that, Dana. What is it likely to have been for this aircraft?
Well, it's almost a dead tailwind on it. Yeah,
no. What is the limit? What is the tailwind
I think
limit?
It's also 10 knots. I'm not an expert on that airplane, but I believe it's no more than what the standard is.
Yeah, we don't know what the limitation is for the manufacturer, and nor do we know what the limit is for their standard operating policy. So maybe somebody out there listening knows that information, but we don't have any of that information in our news sources.
Yeah.
So I would imagine, though, it couldn't be as high as 27 knots. That's just crazy. But
no, and yeah. I mean, we do harp on about it, and it has been one of the aviation industry's biggest targets to prevent runway excursions, which is why there's been such emphasis in the last few years about strict calculations of stopping distances and applying big factors to ensure there's a big safety margin and things. Yet we still get people running off runways, and I think it's just a bit sad. We need to just continue to drive it home, I guess.
Yeah. So if we get any updates on this investigation, we'll certainly talk about it on this show. And before we move on to the next news item, look at here. What do I see? From her lakeside studio and lovely cottage on the lake in South Carolina, we have a doctor, skydiver, marathon runner, strength training junkie, IPA connoisseur, and commercial multi-engine instrument rated pilot, Dr. Steph.
Hey, Captain Jeff.
Hi.
Yeah, make sure I unmuted myself there for a second. Glad to be here. Sorry for being a little late. Seems to be a theme with me recently for the show. I
Oh,
apologize.
you're here
Wait,
sooner than you normally are.
This is true.
Yeah.
This is true. So, yeah.
Good to see you.
Good discussion on that last news item there. I've just been sitting here listening and agreeing. So,
Well,
looking forward
because
to
you're
the rest
late,
of the
Dr. Steph, as per usual, you missed the fruit cup course.
We've
It's
moved on to the
disappointing.
main course.
Excellent.
Oh, I get it. Main man.
Main man.
Yeah.
Got it. Nice to see you, Micah. And Captain Nick and Captain Dana.
Hi. Hi.
What about me?
I said hi to you already.
Oh, did you? Okay, I've already forgotten.
He likes it twice. You know what he's like.
Yeah. Let's
At
not
least.
go there on so early in the show, at least. Anyway.
Okay.
I found the answer to our question, by the way.
Pardon me?
I found the answer to our question
well
okay.
done.
Tailwind.
about tailwind. Minus 1,000 feet to 6,000 feet pressure altitude. Max tailwind is 15 knots per the manufacturer.
Oh.
And above 6,000 pressure altitude is 10 knots.
Okay.
And-
Well, this was definitely close to sea level, so that would be the
Yeah.
15 knot restriction.
15 knot restriction, but
Yeah.
it was right there. I mean, we're talking a matter of minutes.
Yeah. So again, if you look at the previous hour's observation, I don't recall
2,504 knots.
at 4. So, yeah. So where on exactly where was that wind? The instantaneous readout when they were actually making those landing attempts, we don't know.
So you don't know.
I'm sure that the investigators will be able to pull the flight data recorder and get the exact, airspeed and ground speed and be able to calculate or estimate what that wind was at the time of the incident. But we don't have that information.
Legally for us, it was whatever the tower told us. So they'll be pulling the tower tapes as well. By the way, Captain Al in the chat room says for his 320 and 321, he can land up to 15 knots. So that's obviously a bit more for that aircraft because I don't know, perhaps he's got very good brakes, or perhaps you open the windows and hold your hands out. I don't know, something like that.
Might be part of it. But
Yeah.
we do
Better pilots.
at Acme Airlines. We do basically for all fleets, the maximum tailwind is 10 knots. However, there are a couple of places that we fly. For instance, some of the Caribbean islands where the runway is positioned in a way where the terrain is more of a critical thing than the tailwind component. And in those cases, there may be individual exceptions to the 10 knot rule. I'm not sure how high it can go because I really don't have any experience in flying in some of the places where they have the exception. Dana, do you know? Is it as much as 20 knots maybe in some of these places?
I'd have to pull it up on the
On the EFB.
EFB and special pages, but
Right.
someplace like St. Martin would be the first place that comes to mind.
Yeah, I think there are higher limits on some of those islands.
Yeah, sure.
And as far as the actual aircraft limitation, I'm not sure what that would be for the Mad Dog. I'm not sure we have that information, actually. We just have our company's standard operating procedure.
Well, the limitation does say maximum 10 knots unless specifically allowed by company page.
Okay. Very good. All right. Let's see. We'll catch up with you, Steph, and the rest of all of us once we get to our chit-chat section of the show. But in the meantime, let's keep on moving on to the next item in the news folder. And this one is a positive story for a change. Qantas flight makes history by touching down in Sydney after flying 19 hours nonstop from John F. Kennedy, New York. It was flight 7879, 19 hours and 16 minutes. It's the first of 3 flights reaching researching the health of passengers on ultra long haul flight, I would call it. If flights are successful, commercial services could start as early as 2022.
What a cute flight number. Very clever.
7879.
Wasn't a 787-9.
Oh, very good. I didn't pick up on that at all. It was a 787-9. I think somewhere in the article it said something about the fact that they are planning on using perhaps the Airbus A350-1000 or another airplane, another Boeing airplane, maybe the 787-1000 model. Is there such thing? I think there is. The longer version of the Dreamliner. Anyway, I'm not sure about that. But there were two other airplanes that were mentioned in another article that I was looking at that they're actually, if this proves to be a successful test, they're going to use a little bit different airplane. But I could be wrong about that because it is the APG show.
We'll work on that 50% later on.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah. And we'll talk about the fact that you think that you'll bring it up to 60%.
So I thought I saw an article, and I'm just trying to remember, and mixed in with my busy work week here, where they were looking at upcoming aircraft. So the 777X and then additional versions of the A350.
That's the one I think they did mention now. Very good. You did. You brought us to at least 60%. Thank you, Steph.
Yeah, try.
All right.
I'm feeling dizzy.
I mean, I was trying not to be too upsetting for Nick. So just sneak that in there.
A rarefied atmosphere of 60%. Woo!
Yay. Don't worry. It won't be long before we're back below.
I was going to say there's only one direction from here.
Yeah. Anyway, the article goes on to talk about the flights and the fact that they have various monitors on pilot crew, cabin crew, and also several of the passengers, and including data collected weeks before this flight, I guess, to get a good baseline for their normal vital signs, I guess, and their sleep patterns and that kind of thing. There's also a picture of I love the exercise room here. It's basically the galley. They're squatting down in the galley.
Makeshift.
I thought maybe it was somebody lost their contact lens, but maybe they're doing exercising. I don't know. Yeah, that's one thing, Nick, that you don't have to worry about not wearing contact lenses. You don't have to worry about trying to find it on the ground, right?
That's very true. And I also don't have to worry about doing one of these 19-hour flights.
I hope I'll never have to worry about doing that either.
Strangely, I think I'd be okay.
We have a feeling that you would be.
Yeah, well, in business class stuff, of course you're going to be okay. But for those who are sitting way in the back,
is there another way?
In steerage,
what is this?
Lying down, having a shower every hour or two,
The rest of the world class, because
ma'am, yes, I'm taking a shower. Yes, but here's your glass of champagne.
To be fair, I have taken not 19 hours, but I've done 13 hours in economy. So
your frame is much more conducive to.
I was going to also say that, at your size, if you're looking at people like me and Dana, a little different.
We're sitting at a kitchen table and we're uncomfortable because,
we're uncomfortable looking at you sitting at the kitchen table.
Well, I can't explain you. For that.
just guess where my hand is.
Yeah, I don't want to. Okay.
Did anybody else catch this? That they landed with a quote unquote a comfortable 70 minutes of fuel left? I don't think after crossing the entire Pacific Ocean that I would say that I would be very comfortable with only roughly an hour of fuel left on the airplane.
But look at all the places they were flying over on the way to New York or vice versa. I guess you're looking at the one from New York to Sydney. Yeah, it's a little bit different going that direction. You're right.
But I'm also wondering if that 70 minutes of fuel, when they said that, if they meant they had 70 minutes of flying time, or if that's a 70 minutes including the reserve. Big difference.
Yeah, or plus reserve is the question.
Yeah.
Because then there'd be 45 minutes in addition to the 70 minutes. Then, my comfort level would get a lot higher.
Mm-hmm.
But coming across the Pacific Ocean, obviously I'm having to calculate the whole way over. As you get closer to Australia, your landing options become somewhat minute, I believe, unless you South Pacific Islands.
Yeah, but it happens multiple times every day, and they're pretty good, pretty used to handling it, and they don't come in with a lot of reserves, any of them, Dana. So, I think you'll find that it's nothing special.
They had a lot more reserves than that AN-12 that crashed in Ukraine last
Yeah. Just a little bit.
All right. Well, congratulations, Qantas, and hopefully the next 2, 3, whatever flights that they're going to do will prove to be successful. And I will not be found on that flight.
If you're looking for more test subjects, I'd be happy to offer my services there.
Oh, how nice of you.
Yeah,
if
if
they
you
give
get
me a parachute, I'd be very happy to test it out as long as I get parachute over someplace like Texas. Yeah, after about 3 hours, I'm done.
if you go to Perth, I'll give it a go, but not Sydney, thanks.
Yeah, you could go see your dad.
I don't blame you,
exactly.
Nick, because you'd probably have a balloon operator coming there to attack you.
Oh yeah, I sound well. Now
Mhm.
that'll never happen because they'll never be able to fly in the right direction to come find me.
Yeah.
Grant, we are waiting for your response.
Yes,
to,
yes. Please, Grant. Please,
Yeah.
please. I
We
can only
know they're
assume
at the
that
mercy of everything.
I can only assume that he's crafting it very carefully
Mhm.
at this moment.
Not that we're going to need it, but Steph, do you have your recorder going?
It is going.
Awesome.
I started it about 2 minutes ago.
Okay, excellent.
Like I did a whole plain tale about balloons and things today. So yeah, I'm appeasing the balloon.
You're trying to
people. Sorry.
Let's not
get
balloon
back
the
in their good graces.
Aviators.
Yes.
Balloon aviators.
Yeah, that's
and
another way of.
if you're
putting
listening
it.
to the audio only, he did use air quotes when he did. No, he actually didn't. Trying to get him back in trouble.
I know. Nick's doing a story about balloonatics.
Lunatics. Exactly right. Thank you, Micah. I need you to write me a script.
Item C. Air Baltic replaces 50 engines on its Airbus A220-300s in 2 years. I'm thinking,
Well, hang on a minute.
what?
And he has 2 engines.
No.
How long has this
Where
airplane
are the
been
other
around?
48?
Well, let me tell you, Steph. Good question. The airline said the engine replacements were conducted for different reasons, including scheduled maintenance. Sure. Air Baltic took delivery of its first A220-300 jets in December of 2016.
December 2016, December 2017, December 2018, and this is November or October. Wow, I'm ahead of myself. October 2019. So, okay.
Yeah, so not quite 3 years for the oldest ones. The Baltic carrier is the launch customer of the type. The Latvian company is also the largest operator of A220-300s with 20 of them. They added the 14th A220-300 at the end of 2018, so 2 years after they started flying them. Each aircraft is equipped with Pratt & Whitney's 2 Pure Power PW1500G geared turbofan engines. This means that Air Baltic had to conduct almost 2 replacements per engine on every aircraft in the first 2 years.
Oh,
Does
that
not
doesn't
seem to me
I was going to say
economic
20
to me.
aircraft, 50 engins. Okay.
Can I ask the important question?
What is the important question, Dana?
Why were they? At what point did they discover that they need to change the engine? Hopefully, it was on the ground and not in flight when it failed.
Well, I think they did have some in-flight failures.
Doesn't say that here, but okay.
But I don't know that for sure. I know that the A220-100 has with Swiss has had some in-flight shutdowns, and that's why they temporarily grounded their fleet of however many they had. I think 15 or something like that. And then they did some inspections on the jets or the engines, and then the temporary grounding was lifted, and they weren't out for very long or grounded for very long. And I thought I read in that article that that it didn't affect the A220-300s, and I'm thinking, oh, they must not be having any issues with the engines. And then I saw this. Oh, no, they are having issues with that engine. It's a different version of the PW1500.
Well, let's bear in mind the geared turbofan is a new style of engine, a new technology, and we're they're working on it. And I'd be very curious to know if our friend Max Flight knows anything about this or has any comments about it, because he worked with those. But having a grounding aircraft or changing out engines based on a new engine isn't really very unique if you think about the Trent 900 and the 787s and brand new engines. So there are issues with new engines sometimes, and I'm sure that they'll get it right and everything is going to be fine pretty soon.
And I do agree with Max Flight, who is in the chat room, the YouTube chat room. He says those numbers don't quite sound right, and I agree. They just sound way too.
Well, we talk
Way
about our
too few. There are a
50%.
lot more engines than those, surely.
We talk about our 50% accuracy rate.
Yeah.
There was some other questions in this article about the A220-300 coming from a European manufacturer.
Yeah, so
Airbus?
I guess
versus
consider the fact that technically it's an Airbus 220, although we know it's a Bombardier C series, and it's a Canadian manufacturer, not a European manufacturer. But I don't know. Are we getting into semantics?
It's
Probably.
a Canadian manufacturer that is owned by a European company that is manufactured in the USA.
There you
there
go.
you go.
How much more convoluted can we get?
We
I'm
can
just
try.
going to make
It's like
a general
Boeing
comment.
owning the 717 and saying that the MD-95 is really a 717,
Right.
when claiming it's
Yeah.
a Boeing aircraft when it really isn't.
That
Just
is
like
true.
the A220 is not not an Airbus product. It really is a Bombardier product, and it's just owned by Airbus now.
A
Well,
C
just like
series
the-
a C series by any other name.
Yes. And just like the B-17 G model that crashed at Bradley a few weeks back is a Boeing B-17. However, it was actually made by McDonnell Douglas, that particular model. And
Not even
3,000
McDonnell
others.
Douglas.
Or Douglas, you're right. I keep saying McDonnell Douglas, but McDonnell wasn't together with Douglas at that point.
No, he was still at the farm. I just want to make a general comment.
Yeah,
That was a good one.
E-I-E-I-O.
Very, very
Just
clever.
a general comment about the latest generations of engines. Not only do we have the aircraft manufacturers wanting to cut weight down to an absolute minimum, so they're using new materials. We've also got the engine manufacturers trying to do that and create more thrust and make their engines more economical. They really are stretching the design limits of the current generation of engines and building and stretching into the future. You know, they're hoping for improvements, but I think the reason we're getting so many of these failures is because in the old days, engines were pretty much built out of cast iron, and you didn't have a lot of the design restrictions they do now on the weight and the technology they're trying to push forward. So I think it's inevitable we're going to get teething problems with these engines. It's just, it'd be nice to see more of them getting through without hassles. I mean, there are some engines that are proving to be very reliable, but there are some significant problems with others.
That is true.
You know, they just need to put the JTAD-219 on that engine, on that airplane, and it will be fine.
And then reheat it, because that would be even finer.
Yes, that was suggested actually by one of our listeners.
Oh, that was a very good idea. I like that.
That would push that little jet like crazy.
Woo!
Woohoo! It's true. All right. Item D. We have an update to the story regarding the Austral Airways, the pilots that were videotaping / taking pictures of the fireworks of the River Plate stadium outside of, was it Buenos Aires, I think? Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Here is Marcus Fabio, captain for a major airline in Brazil. On episode 396, you guys talked about, I guess that was our last episode, the pilots who were filming and taking pictures. In Brazil, this is not acceptable, and for sure, both pilots will be in trouble with the aviation authorities and the aviation authority and the company as well. I follow you guys up and love this podcast. Success to you all and safe flights, Marcus. Thank you, Marcus, for sending in the update, being right there, on the pulse of what's happening down there.
Yep. Good news.
Yep. Okay. Not for them, though.
No, I think they're for the high jump.
Yeah. Item E. A couple heading off on holiday were stopped. I think this is at the Isle of Wight airport, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right?
Isle of Man.
Isle of
Or
Man.
wait,
Whoops.
actually, no.
I think that's correct, Steph. You're right. Not
It says that's where they're from.
Oh.
But I don't know which airport they were at.
Okay, well, anyway, whichever airport this was, they were heading off for on holiday, and they were stopped at airport security for accidentally packing their pet cat in their hand luggage. Nick and Voirey, cool. I'm not sure how you pronounce Voirrey. I've never seen that name before. Were astonished to find that Candy, the cat, had managed to sneak into their suitcase while they were packing for a 40th birthday trip to New York. The pair were ushered into a side room and questioned about the surprising discovery before airport staff organized for the curious cat to be picked up and taken home so the couple could get their flight. Nick from the Isle of Man said that Candy is always looking for bags, boxes, and tight spaces to hide in. Quote from Nick, our hand luggage didn't have much in it, so we could bring shopping home. But Candy, our cat, found a way in, and off to the airport we all went. Airport security were all very puzzled and repeatedly asked if the bag was ours after it had been through the scanner. After being taken into a side room, Nick says his wife guessed it could have been one of their 3 cats that had secretly decided to join them. And she was right. The couple said staff at the Isle of Man airport were awesome and laughed with them once they realized it was an honest mistake. Then they were handcuffed and taken off to jail for 20 years. Just kidding.
They whip people on the Isle of Man. I think it was the last country, I might be wrong, where they still had birching. You could birch someone as a punishment on the Isle of Man.
Ooh, like a birch branches?
A birch is a fairly long stick you would have seen in old schools for whacking students.
Yikes! Namely, carried by nuns in the Catholic schools.
Probably.
I was going to say it's a cat, so it's no big deal.
Yeah, at least
a dog would be up in arms over.
Yeah. Well,
actually,
interesting.
I thought Manx cats didn't have tails. I thought they were tailless.
I don't think this one was one of those models.
Oh, it was an
According to
immigrant.
the picture, it was not a Manx.
Foreign cat.
Yeah, a foreign cat.
Yeah, okay.
Has a couple of cute little pictures there. We'll put the link in the show notes so you can see Candy.
And we better go to a news story before our audience gets catatonic.
Okay, where's my rim shot? Here. Well, I guess it doesn't deserve one. Oh, it does.
Wow.
Okay, this one is an interesting article. I think that
I take exception to this one. Yeah, Liz found this.
It's a graphic on life satisfaction, and she says, "Note the location of pilots on this graph." And so it's like an XY kind of a 2-dimensional graph with a red line in it. And so I'm assuming the red line is like if you're above the red line, it's good, and below it, it's bad. Is that what you?
Well, that's just where the average is. So
that's the mean line.
It's more about you want to be high on the whichever one's XY. Sorry,
you want to be in the top right corner.
You want to be in the top right corner because then you're high life satisfaction and high gross hourly pay.
Are you being paid to enjoy yourself?
Exactly.
Wow. Hey,
and why is the porn star on this?
So
oddly, life satisfaction goes from 7.0 to 8.3. It's a strange scale, but there you go.
So
I'm sure there are some people above and below that, but this is, I guess, the majority.
Liz says this came from Nick, not Liz.
Oh, I was hoping we were going to be able to blame Liz.
Yeah,
no, it's your fault that we're looking at this. So, so as you gathered, of course, you'll have to look at this graphic.
It came from the Times newspaper, is where it came from.
I don't see doctors on here. I'm looking for doctors.
That's why I take exception with this.
Well, there's some midwives on there.
There's a physiotherapist.
I am none of those things.
That's what
even farm workers.
Where the positions of some of these jobs are. So, bottom left-hand corner, which is the worst, are elementary security operations. So I don't know if that means we have schools called elementary schools. I don't know whether it means you're a very basic security operative or you're working in an elementary school.
Security at an elementary school, yeah.
So
unclear.
Sales occupations.
I think they mean based on other things. I think they mean entry level. Yeah.
I think we're talking about mall cops.
You're probably right. Rounds persons and van salespersons. So basically, white van man, he's pretty much down the bottom left corner.
Oh.
And now in the top right corner are aircraft pilots and flight engineers.
Now, I wonder if the hourly rates that they are citing for, on this graph at least, for aircraft pilots and flight engineers, I wonder if they made any kind of an adjustment, because our hourly rates, if you look at them, if you're working for a company that pays in hourly rates, such as Acme Airlines, we only work 20. I mean, actually get paid. I shouldn't say work. Get paid for, let's say, half of a 40-hour work week. So, if you take our hourly rate and divide it by 2, that's probably more accurate, or more accurately reflects what it would be for a regular kind of job. You get paid, for actual time at your job. But I don't
You
know.
would have to ask McKinsey, whose analysis this is. I don't know.
And what about the other person there, the W person? Well-being. Oh no,
Well, Work
that's not
Center
a
for
name.
Wellbeing. That's the name of the.
That's the person that.
Okay.
Well-being and
Or that's the article that it came out of.
Dr.
The journal.
Wellbeing, I think.
Dr. Wellbeing.
You guys are reading that wrong.
I don't think it matters so much what the numbers are; it's the comparison between jobs is the important thing. So, the clergy come very high in satisfaction, but they're paid rubbish. Legal professionals come quite low in comparison with us, but they're paid extremely well.
Yes.
A train and tram driver isn't much higher than a legal professional, so they obviously get paid reasonably well, but perhaps just driving a tram isn't really doing it for them.
Oh, tram.
I've also figured out why doctors are not on here.
Because they're off the charts.
Because they're off the chart, exactly.
Yeah.
They're just, they're like an 8.3 with well above 40.
And they haven't put sewage engineers on it either, because they're off the bottom.
Well, we're off the chart one way or the other. Probably off the far right hand, but then your guess whether it's top or bottom of those life satisfaction.
Hey, Steph, you are off the charts to us.
Oh, you guys are too
But
kind.
it looks like the happiest peoples are florists, farmers, rail transport operatives, farm workers, company secretaries, elected officers and representatives. What do they mean? Politicians. They can't be happy, surely.
They don't seem to be very happy.
Yeah, but they're supposed to be happy,
yeah.
And certainly, I know you don't follow it over there in England, Nick, but job satisfaction and how much they get paid, I would have to say soccer players or football players over in England would be way off this chart as well.
Yeah, I think they would disappear off the right-hand side.
Yeah.
They earn more in a week than the average bloke earns in a year or more.
Yep.
I want to get back to something that Jeff said, that many new listeners or people not particularly familiar with pilots, at least in the USA, pilots and flight attendants and how they get paid. But I think it's important for people to know that may not be familiar is that you guys don't get paid until the door is closed. So for all the time you're sitting on the ground or in holds or whatever with the door open at the gate, flight attendants nor do pilots get paid. It's only when the door is closed. And I think many people who may be new listeners may not be aware of that. And it's important to know.
Yeah, but we didn't. We got paid a salary. And I think it depends.
Yeah, right. That's why I said in the US.
Right.
Yeah.
And there are I think there are a handful of air carriers in the U.S. that are also paid on a salary basis as well. And then a lot, I think corporate flying is that way. So now I should add that I think that there are certain exceptions to that, Micah, as far as sitting on the ground with the door closed or maybe even open where no, I take that back. The door has to be closed. So if you're sitting at a gate with passengers on, they're still working, obviously, but because the door is open, they're not getting paid. But we do have certain protections in like a minimum amount of pay per day. At Acme, for pilots, it's a minimum of 5 hours and 15 minutes, whether we fly that much or not. And for the flight attendants, I think it's like 4:45.
That's actually not true, Jeff.
It's not.
Because it's an average.
Okay.
So over the trip, it has to average.
Well, effectively speaking.
Effectively, yeah.
I mean, if we want to get into the minute details, then.
Well, I'm trying to bring us up to 50%.
Yeah. Well, hang on. Okay. Item G, one of Delta's first flight attendants dies at Delta is a very similar company to Acme. What we call it, our sister airline. One of Delta's first flight attendants dies at age 103 while working the Atlanta to Heathrow.
I was going to say, which flight was she on?
She may have been actually
on flight 103.
We do have a lot of them that are working very well. I'm not going to even go.
They just love their job so much they can't give it up into retirement age.
Sybil Peacock Harmon, a part of Delta Airlines' first class of flight attendants, has died at the age of 103. She was 24 years old when she was a nursing home, nursing home, a nurse. Later in her life, maybe. Let me start reading that paragraph again.
No, Harmon, I like it the way.
No, I like it just the way it is.
Just keep going.
Leave it right. Just keep on going.
Fix that in post.
Yeah, you just don't need to fix it.
I'm going to fix it.
No.
Harmon was a 24-year-old nursing school graduate when she was hired in 1940 as a Delta stewardess. Back then, stewardesses were required to be registered nurses.
What?
Since then,
common.
Yes.
stewardesses have become known as flight attendants. Delta has grown into one of the largest airlines in the world, and Harmon's flight logbooks have been preserved by the Delta Flight Museum. She worked for Delta from 1940 to 1943. And that's pretty common as well, only working a short period of time, because once you were married, you were no longer allowed to work as a flight attendant or a stewardess back then. Flying mainly on the 21-seat DC-3 before leaving the airline to join the war effort. Oh, she left because she was joining the war effort. She then... Skepticism from Steph, I hear.
No, I was just...
Oh, you were agreeing.
Agreeing, yeah.
Okay. She then married U.S. Army Captain Wallace Harmon, a former Delta reservations agent who eventually became a district director of traffic and sales in Dallas. Their daughter, Peggy, worked as a Delta flight attendant from 1973 until 2008. I got my calculator out and figured out that was 35 years. So that was a nice, again, the contrast with her mother working 3 years, and she basically, back then it was not a career for stewardesses, and now a flight attendant is a career, as you can see from her daughter Peggy working 35 years. Delta threw a 102nd birthday party for Harmon last year at her retirement home in Ackworth. The chief executive officer, Ed Bastian, recorded a birthday message thanking her for all you did to put Delta on the map.
I wish they'd recorded a special message for me after 3 years of work.
Yeah, well, we're going to record a special message for you, Nick.
As a pioneer of the airline.
Yeah, I can just imagine what that's going to say.
As one of the pioneering pilots of Acme Airlines, we award you our thanks for your
wooden clock.
All right, and then to stay with the flight attendant theme, the last item in our news folder is this from CNN. An all-female Delta team flew 120 girls to NASA to get them excited about aviation careers. Delta flies from Salt Lake City to Houston every day, but one recent trip was a little different, packed with girls getting a behind-the-scenes lesson about aviation. The airline took 120 girls between 12 and 18 to NASA's Johnson Space Center last week for International Girls in Aviation Day. The event was designed to encourage more women to enter the male-dominated field. The girls, who came from area STEM schools, which means science, technology, engineering, maths, got to see women run all aspects of their flight, Delta said. The plane had an all-female pilot and flight crew, ramp agents and gate agents on the ground, and women in the control tower giving pilots instructions, telling them what to do. The students toured NASA's mission control and ate lunch with astronaut and aerospace engineer Jeanette Epps. We know representation matters. At Delta, we believe you have to see it to be it, said Beth Poole, general manager of pilot development, who started the program in 2015. We're taking ownership to improve gender diversity by exposing girls at a young age and providing a pipeline so that 10 years from now, they will be the pilots in the Delta cockpit, inspiring generations of women to follow.
Nick, I hate you right now. I'm sorry.
Why? What have
There
I
was
done?
nothing funny in that.
I didn't do a thing.
I'm the one that highlighted it, actually.
You did? I hate you, Jeff.
It caught my eye, and I'm thinking, I think that she
It was
left
poor
out
semantics.
She left out a word or two there
Yeah.
to kind of really express what she means there. But anyway.
Also, we're childish. Sorry.
Yeah, well, that's part of what we do here.
To borrow from Airplane Geeks historian David Vanderhoof, I'm really thrilled that they sent an unmanned aircraft to this event.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Let's see. Delta says that 5% of its pilots are women, and that 7.4% hired over the last 4 years are women. So they're upping their standards. Up yours. And Girls in Aviation Day was a worldwide effort, and organizers say that more than 20,000 people participated in the United States, Canada, and Australia, as well as in countries in Africa, Asia, and Europe.
What if I had bid to fly that?
Well, you would have been given a different schedule, I think.
I don't think that it was probably up for bid, David.
Well, but see, here's the whole deal. I do have a female's first name, so I may have passed until.
Oh, yeah, you might have. Wouldn't that have been funny?
You'd have had to wear a skirt.
Great.
Dana shows up. Okay, let's go. Where are we
Let's
going?
go.
Wait what are you doing here?
What are you doing here? You know, okay. You have the wrong equipment, sir.
Yeah. Equipment check.
I'm
All right.
still waiting for my
No.
apology from HR. It hasn't come through yet.
I'm sorry, Nick. I falsely blamed you for shenanigans that Jeff got up to.
But we
Yep.
correctly blame you for that graphic that we had in the previous couple of items there.
Yeah, I don't think any blame was required. Thank you
Well,
very
that's
much.
It was a nice graph. Never mind. Good work, Nick.
Nice giraffe.
All I can say is these ladies make the piloting profession look good.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And this is for you, Captain Nick.
Good work, Jeff.
Good work, Virgin.
All right. Let's see here. I think it might be time for us to kind of get to know each other. What do you think? Getting to know you, getting to know all about you, getting to like you, getting to hope you like. It's too low for me to sing that note. Anyway, it's our segment where we kind of get caught up. Oh, look, I wish you could see the video.
They're so cute.
Main man Micah and Dana just dancing along with the music in the background. Wow.
Getting to know you.
Anyway, so let's see. Who wants to go first? What have you been up to since our last episode, which was last Thursday? Okay. No volunteers.
Jeff goes first today.
Okay.
Let's skip this bit.
Why don't we nominate Jeff for change?
All right.
like
Let's talk about. Let me get my notes. Really haven't done a lot, to be
All
honest.
right. So that was good, Jeff.
Wait, I'm not finished though. Hang on. So I was on a 3-day trip, and so I had the whole weekend off. It was nice, a wonderful, relaxing weekend, and went out Monday through Wednesday. I was in the Empire State Capitol the first night, Albany, New York, and then the second night in Providence, Rhode Island, and then back yesterday afternoon. And here I am, and I'm not scheduled to go out again until Monday on a 4-day trip. Also, you can look into our APG community calendar where you can see where the crew is and any scheduled meetups in the future. Again, that's airlinepilotguy.com/calendar. I have a note here. Oh, wait, before I talk about that, there have been some folks asking about or inquiring about any kind of a big event, because we're on episode 397 right now. And we're getting very close to episode 400, and they were wondering if we were going to do anything special for that. And I think we decided that, especially after that really big blowout Osh Blast 2019, that we'll just kind of keep it on the down low for a while, and then maybe do something extra special for our 500th episode, which will be, I guess, in a couple of years, right?
2 years.
Yeah,
Just
2
under
years, just under 2 years. So we didn't actually have any formal discussion about that, but I think that has been generally our feeling on the crew, right?
We've discussed nothing and gotten a lot of inquiry about it. So.
Yes, as is normal with our group. But anywho, so for those of you wondering, no,
A formalized discussion.
we're now doing a formalized discussion on this, and we have ruled that we are not going to do a special 400 show. So it'll be just like every other one, basically. By the way, personally speaking, I started the Catholic Pilot podcast back in, I don't remember the exact date, but I think it was like September 9th of 2009. And so we just went over the 10-year podcasting point. So
woohoo!
Yay!
Still doing
That's
it.
worth celebrating.
With all the help of my great co-hosts, of course. I couldn't have done it without you guys. And I just noticed something. We have some audio feedback from someone that we haven't heard from in a while. So let me hit the play button. You guys ready for this?
Yes.
Yep.
He turns around and says, "If I could fly like that old chap, I wouldn't need the ointment." Well, that's a great thing. Station check. This is the Airline Flying Guy show. I am Captain Jerry Nelson, and this is not Kamikaze Whiskey. No, my friends, this is Johnny Walker, Double Black Label. And I'd just like to take this time to thank you once again for contributing via patronizeme.com and making this podcast possible.
Oh,
I almost forgot. Captain Alf has written a new book. It's entitled, I have it here, Why You Probably Won't Die Horribly in an Air Crash. Captain Alf has done a lot of good work for those who have a fear of flying. Well, he's done a lot of work anyway. And I'd just like to say one thing before we move on to the feedback. If you're sending in audio feedback about the short pilot's tale, remember it's a short pilot's tale, not a short pilot's tale. And if you're writing in, it's TALE. Okay? Okay. So, Doc, what's the first item in the feedback?
Well, Jerry, it's about holding patterns.
Wait a minute. Oh, behave.
I'm sorry. Was there some sort of innuendo involved in that?
Maybe not.
Anyway, John wants to know our views on holding patterns.
Well, John, I think holding patterns are pretty boring, just elongated ellipses. Well, that's hardly the point. Now with Flight Radar 24 and such, you can leave your mark in the sky. I like to at least, draw a banana if I can. What was that, Jerry? A banana? Yeah, a banana. So how do you fly the ends of the banana? You mean the pointy parts? Yes, the pointy parts. I mean, what sort of bank angle are we looking at here? I don't know, 75, 80 degrees. And the passengers are okay with that then? Well, it's a coordinated turn. I'm on the pedals. Real smooth. Right. In fact, I'm trying to find someone who can help me program my profile into the FMC. Hey, I think we got the title for the show, Holding Patterns. Well, I wouldn't advertise it if I were you, Jerry. What do you mean? Nothing. You go ahead. Well, I guess you're wondering why Captain Danny isn't here today. He's recuperating from an incident after one of his trips at the Atlanta airport. He had a run-in with an FAA inspector that he's had problems with in the past. Anyway, an argument with him and the inspector escalated, and at the behest of the inspector, 2 TSA agents had to tase Danny. And we have a video of that incident that we're going to play now. Is that enough, sir?
One more.
Yow! And I'm sure we'd all agree that those were upsetting scenes involving our fellow captain and co-host, Captain Danny. Oh, absolutely.
Yep.
Yet strangely entertaining. So we'll have that video available for you in the show notes. So what is our next item of feedback, Vic? Well, Jerry, Gene writes in and asks if being an airline pilot is still a glamorous occupation. Well, Gene, a lot of pilots say that being an airline pilot, it's 1.5, 2 hours of boredom sprinkled with 15 minutes of sheer terror. That's what a lot of the FOs that fly with me say. But I think there is still quite a bit of glamour involved in my occupation.
Jerry, are you still playing with your friends on the computer?
Yeah.
Well, do you think you could unclog the downstairs John like you said you would? The plunger is under the basin.
Right. Well, I guess we're hitting that 7-hour mark anyway, so I'll just hand the details of how to contact us over to Hal.
All right. Thank you.
Brilliant.
Captain Jerry.
Brilliant.
That was
I'm
awesome.
crying, like literally crying. So funny.
So those were the wonderful voice acting skills of Bruce Bowden, and he asked me to give everybody his URL. It's voices.com/actors/Bruce_Bowden #bio. And we'll just put that in the show notes for you. If you want somebody to do some voiceover work for you, obviously he has a great repertoire of character voices, including Captain Jerry and Captain Danny and
Captain Vic.
Doc and Captain Vic. Good stuff.
Up your nose, obviously.
That was funny.
Absolutely hysterical.
Yeah, I meant to play that on the last episode and completely forgot because I had it off to the side in one of the columns in the intro notebook, and I was so upset with myself after we ended the last show, and I went, "Oh, darn it!"
Well, I'm glad you played it today because I think I probably would have missed it if you played it in the last show.
That's true. Yeah,
or at least the live version.
That made my
was epic,
sides
though.
hurt.
Absolutely epic.
I think he's captured the character of each of us very
He's
well.
been taking notes, I think.
Yes, he's been
And
studying.
he made it sound like it was 3 hours long as well. That's very good.
Well, you know,
I was about to say the show's over now, guys. Yeah,
We're
That was a
approaching the
great
7-hour
show.
point. Very clever.
Oh,
Very,
that
very
was
clever. So
hysterical.
thank you, Bruce, for that. And let's see. That is all for me. And so who wants to go next? How about
Okay, I'll
Dr.
go.
Okay, Dana.
Oh, Doctor, you about to say Dr. Steph? Let her go.
I was about to say that, but let's go with you.
And nothing interesting. Very, very easy 4-day that I'm on. Yesterday was not so easy, but it was challenging in a very positive way. Came and flew, let's see, up to Greenville, Spartanburg, and back. Took an hour and 35 minutes to fly from Greenville back to Atlanta on a 29-minute flight. Air traffic control delays into Atlanta due to all of the construction that's going on. We were about ready to start our engines to go ahead and meet our controlled takeoff time for air traffic control, and nothing. We couldn't get the engine started, so that was fun. The APU Air decided to quit right then and there, so we only had about 500 psi, so it wouldn't spool the engines past about 8 or 9% N2. So quickly
That would
called
result in a very hot start, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would. So called operations real quick, and they were very responsive. Got the hover carts out there to start the engines remotely with and if you don't know what a hover cart is basically it's an external jet engine that blows high speed air that we would normally get out of the APU to allow the engines to spool up and create ignition once we put the fuel to it. So. In sparks, of course. So we didn't have the ability to do so. So they got it started, but we missed our control time by about 2 minutes, despite their best effort. So that was the end of that. And it was interesting because I had to make some pretty quick decisions, including calling maintenance and getting our approved procedure on that for our MEL, which needed dispatcher approval required, so that we still met our time to get airborne for our next release, which was much sooner than the last one. And then coming here to Portland, I don't know why I decided to do it, but right at departure time, I decided to check our tire pressure on all of our tires. So it delayed us a little bit. But other than that, beautiful flying, weather in the Atlanta, and actually the entire East Coast of the U.S. As I mentioned earlier in the show, the weather here in Portland's absolutely fantastic fall day, and been a nice, easy trip. Nothing else really to report. Pretty basic.
Very good. Thanks, Dana. Micah, what have you been doing since the last episode?
Let me see. The last time I was on was like sometime in September. So let me see. That's like 5. No. Things been going okay. Been having a good time. Knowing that Dana was coming in last night, I was able to drop off a little surprise for him at the hotel.
Yes, you did.
So had to, take care of him because what that midnight flight from Georgia is like, Jeff. You've done it yourself. Everything's closed. There's no bar. There's no food. So somebody's got to take care of you.
I actually wrote a song about that, Micah.
Did you really?
Train to Georgia. No, wait a minute. No, I didn't.
Yeah, And so anyway, we chatted a little bit last night, picked Dana up this morning, went to a lunch at Becky's Diner, which is just a great place in Portland. It's like gourmet food in a diner. And then we set up here, and Dana brought me this great present. Look at that. Isn't that a wonderful aircraft?
Woohoo! Look at that thing.
That's going to go in a place of honor in my home.
Very nice.
And here we are.
For the benefit of those who aren't watching the video, what is it that you held up?
It's a beautiful model of an Acme MD-90.
Cool. Very good.
And I don't want to talk about it a whole lot because I figured Mike would talk about it. But let me tell you what, the food was fantastic. The hospitality is always fantastic. My entire crew, when I showed up at the hotel last night, looked at me when I had this cooler. I mean, a Coleman personal cooler that showed up with my name plastered all over it. And started opening it up as they were signing in for the hotel rooms. And I pulled out these two wonderful sandwiches that actually more like subs, torpedoes, or whatever you want to call them, that Micah had handmade with love and care. And then five of the was Smirnoff Ice or
Mike's Hard Lemonade.
Mike's hard lemonade, which then I aptly had to taste to make sure that they were perfect. So today at Becky's, I had a lobster roll and some clam chowder. Oh, fantastic. Enjoyable time being here with Micah as always.
And Dana wanted matzo brie for an evening dinner, which for those of you who don't know, is like a savory French toast made with matzah. So we've got that all set up. And I figured if we're doing that, that's kind of a dairy dinner when it comes down to a traditional Jewish dinner. So in going in that aspect of it, we're having creamed pickled herring with onion and whitefish salad and smoked salmon. And I made some homemade tuna salad to go along with that. And we'll start that sometime when the show's over.
And Dr. DeMarco, don't worry about it. My blood work's on for another 2 months. Okay. Don't worry about it.
Awesome.
I think I don't know. I do not know if I'll fit in my uniform by the time I leave here tomorrow morning.
You're making my stomach just
I know,
growl.
I'm strangely hungry over here.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you very much, Dana and Micah and Steph. Now it's your turn.
All right. Waiting patiently for that. No, I'm just kidding. So last show was Thursday. Today is Thursday again. Feel like I've been very busy in the past week, but none of it has been flying related per se, unless you count some body flight time. I booked some time in the wind tunnel again with a coach, and been doing some interesting indoor skydiving related activities recently. So working on getting better at that. I do need to do some actual flying in an airplane here soon. But kind of been getting caught up on life after a little bit of travel and being away in a marathon. And honestly, I had some work to catch up on last Saturday over the weekend. And then I had all kinds of plans to catch up everything else in the rest of my life, including cleaning this messy office here. And you can see how far I got on that. So it's been another busy. Yeah, looks great, right? Actually, I think there's more stuff here now than there was last week.
Well, Steph, there's a reason why I have a very large screen TV behind me.
I need to do that, I think.
Yeah, so you can't see any of the mess in this place.
Hide this stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been just busy work. Getting into our busy time of year again. October, November, December, always busy after people have met their deductibles. But that's a completely different podcast. So anyway.
Do you do another podcast?
Maybe. No.
Oh, okay.
No, definitely not.
Moonlighting on me, huh? Okay, excellent. Well, never mind. Anything else?
I don't think so. I was looking back through my calendar trying to see if I'd done anything interesting of note. It's mostly been work-related stuff, and honestly, not that interesting.
All right. Well,
sounds
like my life.
This has been the best part of my week so far.
Yeah. Excellent. Oh, you're so sweet. Okay. Excellent. So, Captain Nick, last but not least, how have you been, sir?
Keeping well, thanks very much indeed. I got a lovely surprise today. Lovely big package pitched up, and for once I didn't have to pay duty and VAT on it, because I often get lovely packages pitch up, and then I suddenly realize that the whoever sent them has left an outstanding bill. But there you go, that's life. So this one was from Stefan from Hamburg. He and his lovely wife Kirsten. We met at the Frankfurt meetup, which was absolutely brilliant. And he did say that he would have loved to have bought us a Stein, one for me and one for you, which I could have eventually got to, I guess. But he said, actually, Hamburg isn't famous for its beer, so a Stein might not have been appropriate. So what he's done is sent me a bottle of what Hamburg is famous for, and apparently it's famous for its gin.
Oh.
It's called Gin Soul. It's a Hamburg gin distilled with much love and selected botanicals at the Altenair Spirits Manufactory. The beauty of the simple juniper berries, coriander, fresh lemons from Portugal, rosemary, allspice, lavender, cinnamon, and custus are just a few of the botanicals that conserve the saudade of the gin. I had to look at what saudade is, and it's apparently a feeling of longing, melancholy, and nostalgia that is supposedly characteristic of the Portuguese. That's assuming I pronounced it correctly. Otherwise, it might be a swear word for all I know. Apparently, the water for this gin is pumped up from 33 fountains, which are up to 1,000 feet below the Earth's surface, deep in the sands and gravels of the Sal Ice Age. Which occurred around 250,000 years ago, which probably means it's only polluted by the odd little bit of woolly mammoth pee. It's bottled in a lovely stoneware clay bottle, which is reminiscent of the gin's predecessor, a drink called Geneva, which was exclusively poured from clay jugs. And there's a ship on the front, which is apparently the Hadag ferry, which used to ply the waters of Hamburg across the Elbe, but now are found in Portugal only. So that's a lovely gift, and thank you very much indeed. If we get a quiet moment, probably when there's a plain tale, I'm going to pour myself a glass of this and see what it tastes like. Sadly, Jeff isn't with me to try it out as well.
Well, he'll reflect upon his thoughts and opinions when he actually takes a sip of that wonderful gin. So are you, I don't think you have a super palate for gin, right? You kind of are easing into drinking
I'm
gin.
learning to consume gin, and I'm be doing a bit more this weekend because I'm off on an Air Force to get together with my some of the members of the original flying training course I was on when we started flying training back in 1975, which is absolutely brilliant. So we're meeting up at Captain Nigel's house, which you went to when you came across. Exactly right.
And there's gin involved.
And there will be gin involved, I'm pretty sure.
I might have to head over to there for that.
We have a Knight of the Realm. We have a Knight of the Realm and his lovely lady coming. We've got a bloke with the funniest name in the world, Dick Bendy. He'll be there. Lou,
it's going to be a party.
Absolutely. And Daka and his lovely wife Lizzie. Daka because his initials are DAK, and because he was going to be a fighter pilot, we all called him Daka. A few sadly unable to make it, but commiserations to those who are going to miss out on a fine weekend of eating and drinking. So that's going to be me. I might even try and get everyone to help me out with a Patreon recording while we're there and in our cups. So we'll have to see how that turns out.
Excellent. So did you say something about patronize me?
Yeah, I always try and do that anyway. Jeff, you should know that.
I do. All right. Very good. I want to remind everybody, because I forgot to mention it in my little segment, that we are planning on having a meetup, or myself and Liz and whoever else can make it, in how do I say it? Toronto. Okay, or Toronto for everybody else in the world. On the 5th of November, I'm laying over there, and so Liz is trying to coordinate some kind of a gathering. So please stay tuned to the details that will be available on Slack. And as we get closer to the event, we have something nailed down. We'll go ahead and probably tweet it and put it in Facebook as well. So thanks to Liz for kind of coordinating all that. And I may have some kind of a little mini meetup. I'm not sure yet, in Sarasota on the 4th, the day before. That'll be definitely a meetup trip. Kyle I'm not sure where he's from. I think he's from somewhere in Canada because his email address ends with a .ca. And so he is there with his organization raising money for charity. And he's in the Bradenton area, actually. And so not sure if that's going to be a public meetup or not, but I'll let you know if that develops into one. So, yeah, that's only in, a couple of weeks, I guess. Less than a couple of weeks.
While you're up there in Toronto, please say hello to the Lone Ranger.
Okay. Oh, I get it.
Oh,
okay. Wow. Hang on.
Wow. Wow.
I'll do that. Thank you. All right. That is all.
Can I just tell you one other thing that I should have mentioned before, but it's actually very important to me. And I just want to thank you for having me on the show. And I'm so glad that Dana's here today, because today is the 89th. My mother would have been 89 years old had she been around. And it's kind of would have been a sad day for me to just kind of hang out on my own. But it's not a sad day. It's a great day because I've got friends with me all over the world, and you guys, and Dana's right here. So thank you so much.
You all right, are welcome. I'm coming over and I'm giving Mike a hug.
Yay, hug from all of us.
Good job. Good job.
There seem to be a lot of hugs passed along through other people in the history of the show. Isn't that true?
We're very huggy people. Yeah.
We're very touchy-feely people. Come on.
We are. We are. Okay. Speaking of huggy people, these are especially huggy people with their contributions to the coffee fund. Yeah, that didn't work very well, did it?
Johnny, how much more coffee? No thanks.
I love coffee. I love tea. I love the APG community. Coffee and tea and the Java and me. A cup, a cup, a cup, a cup, a cup.
Oh, yeah. So, the Coffee Fund. We're singing the Java. Actually, Jeff Smith is singing the Java Jive. I'm trying to sing with him. Not doing a very good job of it. Sorry. We sing the Java Jive, or he does, because we are talking about the Coffee Fund, which is your way, dear listener, to take more ownership in the show by contributing to it financially. Only if you have the resources to do so, of course. It's a free show. We enjoy doing it. It's a labor of love, but we do have expenses, and we do these great meetups too. And all of our Coffee Fund money goes toward all of that. And if you want to take part in this great group of folks, such as Carl Lake, Ryan Austin, David Lieb, and Chris Randall, they use the Coffee Fund Classic method of contributing. Please do. And we also have a different way to do it. You can become a patron of the show via patreon.com. Not patronize me. Patreon.com, and details about how you can join the Coffee Fund Cadre or the Coffee Bar Club or whatever you want to call this great group of folks. You can head over to airlinepilotguy.com, our great website, airlinepilotguy.com/coffee. You'll be glad you did. We will too. Thank you, everybody.
Captain, incoming message.
All right, it's now time for our feedback segment. And we'll start with item 1 in the feedback folder. And this is from Brad. In episode 394, you read feedback from Radio Roger about a passenger who was removed from an airplane after showing some confusion. Your discussion focused on a possible mental health emergency, but never touched on the possibility that the patient was having an honest medical emergency. Dr. Steph can back me up that acute altered mental status with symptoms like were described could be the result of anything from a diabetic emergency to a stroke in progress. A person who isn't acting right isn't always mentally ill. As an EMT with over 20 years in the field, we've seen many patients written off as drunk or crazy who were neither. As a longtime airplane geek and low-time private pilot, I very much enjoy the content of your podcasts. I'm about 40 episodes deep so far, mostly on my drive to work or while mowing my lawn. I heard this episode and thought it might be about time for me to help keep you guys above 50%. And we do appreciate it, Brad. I'll be watching the calendar to see if Captain Jeff or Captain Dana are ever back to Kilo Mike Sierra November, which is Madison, Wisconsin. I'm an assistant fire chief of the fire department, which provides aircraft rescue firefighting, or ARF, as we like to say, for the field. I'd be happy to give you a tour of the fighter wing, which we're based. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem as though we get as many Acme MD-80s anymore, as they seem to have switched many of those flights to the 717 or the A321s. Also, if he's ever back in Wisconsin, you guys can bring Captain Nick down to Madison, and I can arrange that proper retirement water cannon salute that he never got. Stay safe out there. Hopefully any future possible visits won't be a business call for me. Brad Ingersoll, the Assistant Fire Chief, Truax Fire and Emergency Services in Madison, Wisconsin. Thanks, Brad. And you know what? Brad and I did kind of discuss, I'm thinking of Oshkosh, apparently. Discuss the possibility of us detouring the RV on the way up from Chicago to Oshkosh to Madison to see if we could arrange for some sort of a fire cannon salute, but that never materialized. But I do appreciate it, Brad, for offering, and I guess the offer still stands, Nick. So if you want to come on over here, we'll rent another RV.
Can I wear my swimming trunks?
I was going to suggest your birthday suit.
No. Don't make that.
No.
The good people of Madison.
They're not ready for that yet.
Yeah.
They don't want to be quite that impressed.
They don't want to see. Forget it. I'm just going.
Thank you. Yeah, Micah, just start hitting him when he starts to, look like he's going to say something.
No, but I did stop myself. Did I not?
Thank you. Did self-control. Excellent.
Yes,
Thank you, Dana.
So
although I've noticed you're on either number 2 or number 3 on those drinks, so we'll have to keep a close eye on you.
Well, I'm keeping a close eye on the squirrel outside that's playing with his.
All right, so let's go to the part of the feedback.
How about the first part?
Please, Steph, help.
Let me help you out here. So, I'm trying to remember all the details from episode 394. That was only 3 episodes ago, and I've already forgotten the details of that particular news item.
Radio Roger was talking about his wife was on a flight out of LA, and this lady said, when are we going to be in LA? And that's where they were at the time when they were taxing out. And
was I there for that episode?
You may not have been, but it was in the feedback stuff. So
sorry.
Yeah.
Prepared as usual. Actually, I probably was there for that discussion. So my apologies for that too. That's even worse. No, you're absolutely correct, Brad. Someone who's acting inappropriately doesn't necessarily just have to be a mental health emergency, or they're crazy, or they're intoxicated. Certainly you can see people exhibiting inappropriate behavior such as that with all kinds of acute medical issues that do need attention and treatment. I can think of even more than what you've just listed there in terms of diabetic emergency, stroke in progress. Had a recent experience with pseudo seizures, which was interesting. Not me personally, but something to deal with in the workplace setting. There's all kinds of things that can present as one thing, but actually be something significant in terms of timely and appropriate medical treatment. So that should not ever be written off. And you should always, if you are the professional tasked with caring for that person who shows up on scene or in whatever place of work you happen to be, make sure that your examination and evaluation are thorough.
Well said, Doctor.
My pleasure.
I suppose from our point of view, if we're going to get a medical specialist involved, then whatever the problem is will be resolved. So knowing exactly what the cause is not so important for us, so long as we can recognize it as not something that's drunk or someone's drunk or drug affected, and we get the medics involved.
Correct. Yeah. And, the first thing from your standpoint is obviously if the person's a disruption or flight safety hazard, you have to deal with that from your point of view, from your job angle. But if it is something that seems like it's medical in nature, you need to get that person the attention that they need, and you may be helped by other folks with that. Certainly, law enforcement or whoever shows up to respond to the situation. So,
very good.
Should we say goodnight briefly to Captain Al, who is
Yes,
leaving
Captain
to go
Al is,
write another book in the series of Crashes Are Bad but Not Scary? I look forward to that.
Excellent books, by the way.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, actually, I have one more thing. Touching back on the last before we move on in Brad's feedback there. I was on the social medias today. Half of my Twitter is kind of devoted to aviation stuff, and the other half is mostly medical stuff, which probably makes some good sense. But actually, I don't even know that I follow this particular physician, but it came up in my feed from others who had liked it. There was a poll, and he said, "Who would you want to help you during an in-flight emergency?" And then he's listed 4 specialties. So assuming you're one doctor, you have a choice of a dermatologist, ophthalmologist, radiologist, or pathologist was his poll.
And what
by the way,
were the results?
Well, none of these people are involved in or have very limited like direct patient care contact. So far, the radiologist is winning.
For some reason, that would have been the one that I would have chosen. I have no idea why.
I didn't know.
Pathologist.
Pathologist?
Yes.
That's who I chose too. And I could have picked any of them though, but they're all medical professionals. They're all physicians. But certainly, if given the choice, I want the emergency medicine doctor sitting next to me to help on that flight. There were some pretty funny gifts along with it too, and not meant to belittle our dermatologist, ophthalmologist, radiologist, pathologist friends. I'm a physical medicine and rehabilitation provider, so I'm right there with you in that list probably.
For me, I would have chosen probably a dermatologist because in my experience, most of the dermatologists that I have dealt with have come from other professions, many of them pediatricians, which make them general practice people, which they have other expertise within there before they specialize in dermatology. So.
Yep, and I've known a couple to be family medicine doctors before they go into dermatology, so exactly the case.
I'm reminded of a Seinfeld episode where remember how Jerry gave that dermatologist such a bad time because she claimed that she saved someone's life. She goes, a dermatologist. And then, of course, it turns out that she diagnosed the person with skin cancer and actually did save the person's life. That was a good one. Anyway, everything can relate to Seinfeld or an episode of Seinfeld, I think.
This is true. Yes.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Steph, for helping us answer Brad's question regarding that. And thank you for your input, Brad. And if we need some water cannon salutes, we know who to go to. And,
Brad's all's not lost, honestly, because it looks like Acme just announced, 2 days ago? No, yesterday, that they're coming out with another bid. So we'll see. I might be on that 717 coming back in there to the Madison Airport. You never know.
Yeah. Maybe I'll be retiring on the 717. So who knows?
I thought you were just saying you're just retiring. Like, not flying anymore.
Yeah, who knows? And by the way, in our chat room, Brad, we have a proud resident of Madison, Uber Frank. So I don't know if you guys know each other, but if not, you should get to know each other. Have an APG meetup, not in a funny, intimate way that Dana's thinking about. Apparently,
no, I'm not. I'm just reading what Uber Frank just wrote.
Oh, what did he say?
He said, "I thought Dana said proctologist."
That'd probably also be a good one to include in the survey.
Yeah. Okay, moving on. Item 2, Class Bravo Chris writes, APG crew, loving the new format, news first, then the rest. As a former TV news producer, I'm always thinking about how I might stack your show. I've never heard of that term. Happy to add thoughts as needed offline, especially since you're so quick to be critical of the media. Sorry.
Stack it in the bin, I would.
Yeah, well, hopefully you're not taking that personally.
Please don't.
Chris. Please don't. Yeah. Okay. The reason for my feedback, I was recently a passenger on a United regional flight operated by SkyWest into Denver International when I saw something out my window I've never seen. And he says, I fly 120,000 miles per year, always with my window shade open. Yay. Way to go, Chris. Check out the attached pic, a full-on dust storm on final. 3 questions if you have time for one or all. 1, winds were gusting to 50 knots, 15 degrees crosswind. Wind shear was plus 20 on final. Our pilots handled it confidently while I observed another flight approaching the parallel runway. You can always go around. He didn't sing it, but he wrote that. Along with several other inbound flights. Are the stabilized approach guidelines different for each airline or based on the aircraft? We were in an E-175 Jungle Jet, Embraer. The go around was a Boeing 737. I guess we can take each one as we go here. So what was the question? Or stabilized approach guidelines different for each airline? I think they may be, a little tweaked a little bit differently, but I think most of the major criteria for stabilized approaches is probably common with all the world's airlines, wouldn't you say, Captain Nick?
Yeah, I think they're all very similar. They're type dependent because some of them may have a speed regime which you have to achieve, and of course that is definitely going to be type dependent. And I suspect every airline that has its own individual one will have that procedure checked and confirmed as being acceptable by their authority, in our case Civil Aviation Authority, in your case the FAA, who examine all the company's documents and decide that everything written in them is suitable. So they're all much of a muchness, but I think you're right. Every airline will probably have a small tweak that is relative to their operation.
And I want to take this question to a different place, and that is what there are 2 things I think that are key here. One being that it's a parallel runway, so the possibility that the conditions on that runway may not have been as severe for the 737 that was on final, right? So he may have been on the parallel runway that was closest to that weather. And 2 is it's really up to the captain to really decide based on the criteria in which we're trained to as to whether to continue or discontinue the approach. So maybe what he was seeing on his parallel runway was a little bit different than what the 737 captain was looking
at. And as we know also that the wind shear detection system on that airplane may be a little bit more sensitive than the one on the airplane that you were on, or the one that you may have been on, a little bit more sophisticated and can filter out false wind shear alarms and that kind of thing. So there are a lot of different things that could be in play here, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And in Denver, for parallel runways, it looks like the aircraft is closer. But I mean, if you're on the, let's say, for example, on the east arrival the east side of the airport arrival runways versus the parallel runways on the west side, it's a significant difference. I mean, I think it's probably close to 2 miles difference in.
They're pretty far apart on the 1.7s.
Yeah.
The 1.6s are closer together, and just based on where the wind or the dust storm looks like it's coming from in the lovely picture that he attached. That's a great photo, Chris.
In the show.
Take a look at it. I would guess that they're landing to the south, probably on one of the 1.6s. And you're kind of seeing the edge of Denver there because the wind is probably coming off of the front range towards them.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of from the northwest.
And you can see the sun as well, so it might be the late afternoon.
So that's another good big key giveaway. Sure.
I'm sorry, I think I was talking over you. Say that again, Dana.
I'm sorry. No, I started I thought you were finishing. I said, big dead giveaway is that the sun seems to be setting in the southwest sky, so that would be a giveaway that they're leaning south. Yep. Sure.
All right. Second question he has: I felt the need to approach the cockpit when disembarking and compliment the pilots on their landing. They seemed giddy and actually wanted to talk about it. But I wonder, do pilots generally like passengers critiquing them, or is it offensive since landing the plane safely is an expectation?
Depends how nice you are.
Depends on the critique.
Yeah, and how much money you're going to give them.
That's a good point. We do accept tips, by the way.
I certainly did. I never got any, but I was willing to.
Yeah, me neither. I actually had a styrofoam cup with tips written on it and held it while people were deplaning, and nobody.
You sure you spelled that right?
I might not have. Yeah. Oh, that explains all the dirty looks. Dang it.
Yeah.
I spelled it backwards. Spit.
Spit.
And I went, ooh. Stay away from that. Oh boy.
You know, this is my take on that, is that if you come up with a really snide, stupid, demoralizing type of comment, you know, what are you? You an Air Force? You know, are you a Navy guy?
Oh yeah, you hear that all the time.
You know, I hate that comment.
And people, it's not funny.
It's not funny. So
It's always funny. No,
I'm going to see my chiropractor after that one. I mean,
No, I'm retired. I think it's hilarious.
gonna see my dentist about these fillings you knocked out of my teeth. Send me the
Yeah,
bill.
that's right.
you know, if they're cordial and, you know, and actually seem like they have somewhat of a clue. I mean, I'm sure with how many miles that you do, Chris, you know, you can probably have an intelligent conversation on that. And certainly, you know, anytime anybody wants to talk about it, always willing to talk about it, as long as it's not a derogatory remark.
Yeah. And, you know, the fact that they understood the situation was a difficult situation to land in, and the fact that you were actually saying something nice about it, I mean, we welcome that all the time. You know, that kind of appreciation is definitely welcomed.
Really, pilots like compliments?
Yeah. Can you believe that?
Yeah.
All right.
I'm actually more insulted when I have a perfect landing, you know, the absolutely grease job, and nobody says one thing when they get off the airplane.
I know.
Like,
That's like one of the best landings I've had ever, and not one person says great. You know, nice.
I know. But usually your fellow pilot will say something if you grease one.
I was going to say, how do you know you've never done one?
Oh boy. All right. I'll edit that in post and make it closer to the joke point. Anyway, I do that a lot actually because of my latency. Item 3, while talking with the crew, the first officer who was flying the plane said that the cockpit escape hatch plastic cover came off and hit his head during the rollout, quote, because of the landing and yaw. And then he says, gosh, it wasn't that bad. Have any of you ever had a distraction or issue like that during a critical phase of flight? Thanks as always for your amazing time and energy that you put into this podcast. Let your, quote, wheels up time be at 00 now Zulu. Chris, Class Bravo, Chris, private pilot from Kilo Sierra, Quebec, Lima. And we have determined that is an airport in the Bay Area, California. And forgot exactly which one it is now. But so to answer your third question, I think the reason why he had that reaction, or he said that about the yaw, Chris, and you thought it wasn't that bad, is that some airplanes, and apparently this is one that is like that, and I can tell you that the 727 was notorious because the panels that hold the oxygen masks up, and these are oxygen masks that weren't, you know, like the kind that we have in modern airplanes where they're the oxygen generators, but they actually had a couple of big tanks of oxygen that fed through lines to each of the seat positions. Anyway, so I think it was a little bit heavier or whatever, but these panels, if the airplane landed, and it could be actually feel like a pretty good landing, but if the airplane was in any kind of yaw at all, that was enough to kind of make the panels not stay in position, if that, I'm making any sense.
Like, because it's plastic basically. So
yeah,
if
so it kind of warps,
shifts position a little bit, warps a little bit, it can jostle it open.
And if it's just anything, even not even a really hard landing, a firm landing, then that's when you get the, what do we call it, the orange jungle in the back, or what do you call it?
The orchard? Didn't you call it
the orchard? Yeah, that's another term that people use. Haha, so funny.
A rubber jungle.
Rubber jungle. Yeah, that's another one. But so that I think that if that plastic hatch is anything like that, and the fuselage on that airplane, you know, has any yaw at all, perhaps that's just enough to allow that piece to fall down. But any experiences, Dana, of something that happened in a critical phase of flight that was very distracting?
Sure. I mean, just think about the fact that we like to hydrate and have those bottles of water.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly, if it's in the wrong position when you touch down, and have a first officer that likes to slam on the brakes for whatever reason, you know, that never happens ever.
Yeah. No, it does, unfortunately. And I always kind of go, why did you ruin your landing by slamming the brakes on?
It actually happened last night. So beautiful, absolutely picture perfect landing last night, and he slams on the brakes to make the taxiway when we still have to wait 3 minutes to let the engines cool down before we get to the gate.
Yeah.
So, anyways, the moral of the story is, yeah, there are situations in which I've had, either my cell phone, unfortunately, go flying, or and I'm worried. And the biggest worry I have is that something gets lodged into the rudder pedals when I'm trying to take control of the aircraft as we're slowing down. So, that big bottle of water, if it goes flying and, on an abrupt stop, I've had that happen to me where I've been trying to stop it from going anywhere further. So certainly.
Usually for us, it was not water bottles, Dana, but, on the top of descent, we usually get afternoon tea. So we get, nice scones and jam and fresh cream and a few cups of tea and some nice little sandwiches with the crusts cut off. And some fairy cakes and a few other bits and bobs. And when you've finished all that, you've got this great pile of crockery behind you, which when you're in the descent, you kind of get a bit busy. You kind of forget about, and the girls are supposed to remember to pop in and tidy it away, but they busy too, tidying up the cabin. And exactly right. Even on a normal touchdown and braking, that lot will slide off onto the floor with the most humongous crash. And it'll really give you a bit of a start. So that's not ideal. But for me, the two things that really came out of the blue were hitting a damn great big bird on the approach into Hong Kong, and the noise that made when it smacked off the nose really that really woke us all up. Yeah, exactly. And tootling along on a very boring departure out of Heathrow when, a bolt of lightning just decided to reach out a couple of miles and smack the nose of the aircraft with a big boom and a flash. Yeah, that woke us up, particularly since the ECAM went a bit mad and decided to tell us we'd lost an engine at the same time. So in fact, we hadn't. It was just one of those few electrical wigglies that went around the FADEC, I would guess. But we, after a while, realized that it was still running fine. Had the engineers look it over and decided not to do much about it, just carry on regardless. But those are the sort of things that, they give you a bit of a start.
So just thinking specifically about land, I've got two real quick ones here.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I think I still have the audio that I got from Live ATC for this one. But I was out, I forget exactly what we were doing. I think I was doing some instrument currency stuff, shooting approaches, because I had an instructor with me. And coming in for the last landing of the evening, it was starting to get kind of late, a little bit on the dark side after dusk. Last approach coming in, this was just a VFR approach. I think we actually were doing, might have been nighttime, and I was actually doing my night recurrency too after we did our instrument approaches. But anyway, right over the threshold of the runway and Towered Airport, and controller comes on really loud. At this particular aircraft, at this particular airport, excuse me, there is one airline that has some scheduled service, and really loud to get their attention, says their call sign, says, immediately check your altitude, low altitude alert. But it was so loud, and I was like just kind of transitioning to getting everything set up, and totally startled me. I was not expecting to hear that quite so loud and you have that moment of like, oh my God, is he talking to me? No, he's not talking to me. But so that was interesting. And the other one was, everyone is familiar with my dogs, Taco and Truman. Before they were around, there was Hooch, who was quite a bit larger than my current dogs. And he did go flying with me on several occasions, and he was always super well behaved the first time we did it. I had a friend go with me because I wasn't sure how he was going to respond to it in the back of a small aircraft. We had him in a harness attached to the seatbelt, back of a 172. Did great, super. Next few times, same thing. Third time, landing in Asheville, again at night, 50 feet off the ground. He decides to kind of stick his nose, because he was so big, even though he was harnessed and attached to the seatbelt, he could get his head right next to me. And it was like, oh, hello, there you are. but he was very well behaved. But got my attention. I was not expecting his, all of a sudden it was like hot dog breath, like right in your face. So
Hot dog
What
breath
do you,
or hot
what do you
dog?
think of the landing?
hot dog.
Rough.
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 It's a rough landing.
Oh,
That was
that,
very cute.
there we go.
I mean, I do have one other instance that I could talk about,
Mhm.
and that was the lack. Remember the Happy controller in Atlanta?
Oh, yes.
Yes,
Quite
Happy
the
controller.
opposite.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not very happy at all. Well, he failed to tell or update the information, so quite the surprise version of it. Not quite in the landing portion of it, but we always train in the simulator to go ahead and be able to hand fly the airplane. Down to minimums at at least our minimums as a first officer at that point was right down to Cat 1 minimums. Well, so I'm shooting the approach, and the last report that I had was 800 overcast, and so I clicked off the autopilot about 1,000 feet. It's no big deal. Fly the airplane down. Yeah, next thing you know, you hear the auto call out 500. And like, well, where's the runway? Where's my environment? I'm at now below the 800-foot visibility. And 800-foot ceiling with good visibility, and the air traffic controller that was working that day was the Happy controller there, Mr. Happy, and he didn't bother to tell us that it had gone right down to Cat 1 minimums. So talking about hand flying down to Cat 1 minimums in actual and not being prepared for it, that was quite an enlightening experience, because that's the first time I actually had to do it without even knowing about it. So we broke out right at minimums. I mean, quite literally, my hands were on the toga buttons as Captain called minimums, runway in sight, the closest. And of course, the visibility had gone down to 3/4 of a mile.
Mm-hmm.
So he didn't tell us about any of this. So of course, now the adrenaline's pumping, because now I hand flew the airplane to minimums, unknowing, not ready for it, not really thinking about it, and now I'm at minimums. And what's the number one thing they tell you in the sim not to do? Jeff?
Crash.
No.
Crash.
No.
He's right.
No?
That's right, but not crash. But the other one is that you keep your scan going. You don't want to transition to the outside environment. So I had to keep myself in that mode so that I didn't start popping up on the glide slope and ending up high, right? So you want to keep coming down towards the runway. So all this stuff is happening, and I tell you what, it took me a few moments after we touched down and we started taxiing off the runway that adrenaline rush finally calmed down a little bit, because it wasn't what I was expecting. It was a completely unexpected situation.
I was in one of those situations doing the LDA, the Roslyn LDA approach for runway 19 at DCA. And when I started hearing some of those low call outs, I'm thinking, huh? Like, I still don't see anything. And then luckily I caught a glimpse of the Potomac, and I thought, okay, got the river in sight. We're good.
Was it above you or below you?
It was below. Yeah,
that's okay.
That's always a good shot.
That's
always a good visual.
And the other thing,
was above you, name was Sully.
True. So one of those things that happens on occasion is like a bee or a wasp or something like that flying around the cockpit. And fortunately for me, it's never occurred at one of those critical moments, like during takeoff or landing. But during climb out or whatever, it gets your attention. It does distract you quite a bit when one of these things is flying around. You think it's going to sting you or whatever. So. Yeah, happens on occasion. Okay. Well,
I've told this to one
that's
before,
when you say, let it be.
So please excuse me, but taking off out of Lagos in Nigeria, looking down at the speed, reading out 100 knots, looking back up, and there's a guy walking across the runway in front of me.
Nice.
That caught my attention.
Yes, that would definitely catch
Not what you
attention.
expect.
Yeah,
And that's one of those things where it catches your attention, but it's so out of the ordinary. It takes you a moment to process it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maybe not, but you go, I'm supposed to not run over this guy, and there's that like pause because it's just so different.
I was trying to work out how I was not going to run over him.
Well, yeah, that too.
Actually, he broke into a trot and just cleared by the time we got to him.
Grief.
That would create quite a bit of paperwork.
Yeah.
On a side note, the past few episodes, references to Blazing Saddles has come up, with Nick saying, I believe, it's true. And I really want to point something out about that film. During that particular episode, when they were filming that, in order to maintain its M rating, because back then it wasn't PG, it was M, and not to go to an R rating, they had to cut a line out that was going to come right after that line. It's true. It's true. And that line that was cut out, it'll be perfectly fine on here, was, pardon me, ma'am, but you're kissing my arm. It's true.
Now, that is true that line is a prominent line in Blazing Saddles, but I think our reference is a more modern one, Micah, to a mother and daughter team doing their own video podcast, and the daughter saying, "It's true, it's true."
That's correct. That's
Yes.
true.
It's true.
But that's probably
But
where she
also a
got it from.
great movie reference.
Oh yeah, I
Blazing
love that. Was
Saddles.
one of the best scenes, I think, in the Blazing Saddles.
I never saw it. Sorry.
Oh, come on.
What? Get out of my house.
You're not going to get fed that wonderful meal tonight. Sorry, Dana.
Well, you are. You're just gonna have to watch Blazing Saddles during the movie or during the dinner.
Yeah, oh. All right. See you, Dana.
Bye, Dana. Have a
Anyway,
nice flight home.
he's actually leaving. We're watching the video. He's opening the front
Can't
door.
get out the front door.
You
He's
can come
actually
back. It's okay.
He's coming back now. Okay. And he gives us a postscript. I use Zoom for my work webinars. Never had an audio or video or connection problem. Check it out if you're not happy with your current setup. Well, we will, Chris. However, we are very happy with our current setup, StreamYard. And again, those StreamYard people, thank you very much for the hard work and continuing to make great improvements and such. So thank you, Chris, Class Bravo Chris, for your feedback. It generated a lot of good discussion. Item 3 from Greg. I thought this was a... Here, let's mute Dana's audio. There we go. Well, okay. Leave it muted, please. Thank you. I thought this was a noteworthy story, but the main reason I'm sending in the feedback is because of the picture at the bottom of the article. Your airplane just had an uncontained engine failure, but let's get everyone together for a group photo standing in the firefighting foam. Seems like an odd image you would want to put out for your airline. And so he gives us a link from samchewy.com. And this is from Greg, Very Large Donkey Peterson.
In the chat room, I believe.
Yes, he is.
What is donkey?
Yeah. It just makes it easier for me post editing.
Speaking of, where did mine go? He was here.
Oh, I don't know.
That's
Fanny.
weird.
Where's your Fanny?
Where's Fanny? Fanny. I'll have to find
Yeah,
Fanny.
He came
Oh,
across the
somehow
Atlantic.
over here, and I don't know why.
Oh, hang on. Let's see.
It must be a different Fanny.
They're siblings.
Ah,
Separated at birth, twins.
I think
Is Jeff okay?
Sorry, I was reaching
Jeff
for my
just
Fanny.
had a hernia.
So here's my Fanny.
Pack.
All right. Okay. Now, he's looking the wrong way.
Turn him around so you can see his butt in your face.
Oh yeah.
And sorry for not getting that mute on. I was
His
trying to
big
find
butt in
get
the
to the
face.
mute button a lot quicker than that, and I do apologize for that. That's why when you muted, I unmuted because you had already just muted me.
No problem. No
So
problem.
here we are.
Are you sure you're a pilot?
No, but I'm not good with computers because I fly an MD-88.
This is true.
Okay. So let's get to this article that Greg sent in. An Ethiopian Airlines Boeing 767 was climbing out of Blaise Diagne.
Nailed it.
Blaise Diagne. How would you say that last one?
No idea.
I think it's Blaise
Diagne.
D-I-A.
Blaise Diagne.
Blaise Diagne International Airport on the 8th of October when its right-hand engine failed. Passengers reported a loud bang with smoke pouring into the cabin shortly thereafter. Anyway, it talks about successfully bringing it back in. Pictures of the uncontained engine failure. Looks like the some part of the turbine section that just let go. But as you said, the thing that's just kind of weird about this is, and I thought the same thing when I was looking at this picture, aren't they concerned about their shoes and all that toxic firefighting foam they're standing in front of the failed engine? I don't know. It is interesting, Greg. I agree. What do you guys think? Do you see the photo?
Yeah.
A little messy.
Yeah.
I think the bloke in the middle is quite sensible. It looks like he's taking his shoes off.
That's better.
See him bare feet?
Oh, that
like it.
Or is he
that makes
just
it
got
easier for the
pale
chemicals
tan
to be go into your
permeate.
yeah,
Yeah.
be absorbed by your skin. Anyway, all right. Thank
I
you.
must admit, I'd pose in front of my burning airplane if I had a chance.
It would be a fun photo, wouldn't it?
I like the one where he's, I think it's the captain trying to tell me stripes are on his epaulets there, but underneath the engine there, kind of inspecting it. So you can see where the fire was on the one side, and then he's kind of traipsing around in the foam underneath too.
Yeah.
I think with his phone getting his pictures.
Exactly.
Is that actually part of the jet pipe, or is that actually a beam, the turbine? Do you think? I don't know this engine well.
I mean, I think the fan and compressor section and the fan is not too far forward from there. I think it's kind of like the middle section. I think you can kind of see a little bit of the tailpipe to the left of the photo, but I don't know. I could be wrong about that.
Yeah. I was just wondering whether it was blade damage or whether that was just burned through by the fire.
Oh, I don't know. But they did say it was an uncontained failure.
Yeah,
So.
I had an interesting discussion with people, read an interesting discussion about how you define uncontained or not. I mean, do you actually need to have blade separation and that is not contained? If you have a fierce enough fire against the skin of that part of the engine, it just burns through. Is that uncontained if nothing from the engine has come out through the hole?
Go ahead, Dana.
I was going to say, based on the photograph I'm seeing, I wouldn't say that the engine had an uncontained failure as much as it was just a burn through, because it's too consistent of a pattern here that would indicate more of a burn through than it would of a failure of any of the internal engine parts.
That could be. That's Nick's point as well. Maybe is Max Flight still with us in the chat room, our Pratt & Whitney spokesperson?
Oh, yes, Max is there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Max, give us your professional opinion.
Yeah. Well, while
can he see the picture?
I don't think he can see the picture. Let me see if I can.
Can you stick it on the screen?
Oh, okay. Here, let me see if I can do
this
that.
This is where it all goes to pot. It's all going so well.
It takes so much work to do this, but I'm going to do it because it's the kind of guy I am.
It's a technical challenge, and Jeff loves a technical challenge.
Well, see, I'm using two different MacBooks, and the one that is hosting the stream, I have to now open up that item in the.
Don't cross the streams.
Don't cross the streams. Thank you. That's exactly what I was thinking.
We're going to the danger zone now. No
danger zone.
Yeah, because somebody next to me doesn't like that movie, so I just had to use that word.
Yeah, we know.
Max says containment refers to metal coming out of the engine.
Oh, good man, Max. That's what I reckoned. I watched all these idiots try and say, well, it's got a hole in it, so it must be uncontained. I'm going,
well, even though he's answered it, I'm going to show it anyway.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, I don't think it's uncontained.
I don't know if I could say from that picture whether any metal came out of it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Liquid, maybe liquid metal.
Hole that would have been caused by flying debris, particularly at the speed of heat that those turbines were around at.
It's almost like it's plasma temperature that's just burning right through it. It's just really hot.
Yeah, that's what I reckon.
See if we can. And there's the.
What do I know? I'm not even a pilot anymore.
Once a pilot, always a pilot.
Here's the photo.
Can't get rid of that.
Photo of the ARFF crew and cabin crew, and I don't see any pilots in this one.
Yeah, but she's standing there in heels in that gook,
and she's and the way she has her legs crossed, perfect. Isn't that nice?
Yeah, perfect.
Good picture.
Work it.
This may not, of course, be the sort of chemicals you guys used to. It might be water and washing up liquid.
It could be like dishwashing detergent.
Yep.
Yeah.
Max says it looks more like a fire. Max says it looks more like a fire from a broken fuel or oil line.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. There you have it.
Thank you, Max.
Okay. Thank you, Max and Greg.
Nice to have you on board.
Yes.
Yeah, it would be great to have him here more often. You might get up to 65, 70%.
What would we do with that?
I
Come
don't know
on.
that we can cope.
Yeah. We don't want to go all crazy.
Putting us on a pedestal and all that.
All right. Well, are we getting close to the 2 hour
We
point?
are. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's time
It
for
is time.
I think then it's a great time for us to do this week's installment of the Old Pilot's Plain
Gin
Tales.
time.
It is gin time. And hang on, where are you there? There it is. Here we go.
The Old Pilot's Plain Tales. Pursuit across the Channel. People may think that Britain's recent attempts to separate from the rest of Europe is a new thing, but in reality, it was a struggle that started around 10,000 years ago, when, during the Devensian glaciation period, 2 glacial lakes breached and flooded the wheeled Artois anticline. The first flood lasted several months, releasing around 1 million cubic meters of water per second. This and subsequent megafloods scoured out the channel and destroyed the ridge that joined Britain to continental Europe. Since then, Britain has, more or less, been an island. The English Channel that forms the aquatic barrier between southern England and France has been an important feature in British history and prevented several interlopers from getting a foothold on our green and pleasant lands. Some of the most noteworthy being the defeat of the Spanish Armada by Sir Francis Drake in 1588, the occasion when Admiral Lord Nelson took control of the Channel during the Battle of Trafalgar, securing Britain against an invasion by the Little Corporal during the Napoleonic Wars, and Operation Sea Lion, the aborted Nazi invasion by another corporal during the Second World War. Of course, it wasn't entirely successful as a barricade, or we wouldn't have a considerable smattering of Latin, thanks to Julius Caesar, some German from the Angles and Saxons, and a measure of Norman French, courtesy of William the Conqueror. But without them, we wouldn't have the rich language that gives us a modicum of sense, ale to drink, or a wicket to use in the great game of cricket. At only 18.2 nautical miles, that's 21 statute miles, 38,000 yards, 35,000 meters, or 114,000 feet at its narrowest between Dover and Calais, known as the Straits of Dover, or the Pas de Calais, depending on which side you stand. Just remember who was victorious at Waterloo, my Gallic friends. On a clear day, it's quite possible to see the opposite coastline from either side, and the territorial waters of both Britain and France overlap by a few miles in the middle. Such has been the historic significance of this small stretch of water, it's hardly surprising that crossing it in various ways has been a test of endeavour for centuries. Crossing it by air, however, has been a relatively recent trick, first achieved by, oh the shame of it, an American and a Frenchman. Whilst we're probably aware that the Montgolfier brothers were the first humans to ascend in a hot air balloon, their achievement was followed by a vast wave of balloonomania, which swept France. Clothing fashions changed to produce balloon-like puff sleeves and round skirts in their honour, and hair was coiffed a la Montgolfier. It also heralded a generation of balloonists, including Jean-Pierre Blanchard, keen to experiment in this new science of aeronautics. When getting airborne from Paris in his first hydrogen-lifted balloon, the flight nearly ended in disaster when a spectator, a contemporary of Napoleon, Dupont de Chamois, attacked the mooring ropes with his sword after being refused a place on board. perhaps the world's first display of air rage. Blanchard was going to maneuver his balloon with oars, but despite his attempts to row the aerostat around, it just went where the wind took it. Having moved to England to demonstrate his new flying skills, he was still trying to direct his device, this time using more sophisticated propulsion mechanisms, flapping wings and a windmill. On his third flight, on the 7th of January, 1785, he took off with an American from Boston, the physician, scientist, and military surgeon who served with the British Army during the American Revolution, Dr. John Jeffreys. Setting off from Dover Castle, the wind carried them out over the Channel, but nearing the French coast, weighed down by extraneous supplies such as anchors, a useless hand-operated propeller, and silk-covered oars with which they hoped they could row their way through the air, the two balloonists were forced to throw nearly everything out of the balloon. Blanchard even threw his trousers over the side in a desperate but successful attempt to lighten the ship. Those must have been some trousers. One other thing that was dropped from the balloon was a letter that Jeffreys had penned, which is now considered the oldest piece of airmail in existence. John Jeffreys was also a renowned weather observer, and in the United States, his birthday on the 5th of February is celebrated by weather forecasters and storm chasers alike as the National Weather Person's Day. Blanchard's first manned crossing of the Channel by air was conducted only a few days after an attempt by the French inventor Jean-François Pilatre de Rosier, who, along with his co-passenger, a pilot, a French army officer, were killed when their balloon caught fire during an attempted crossing. Rosier used hydrogen combined with hot air as a lifting gas, despite knowing the dangers. He apparently had gulped a mouthful of hydrogen, which he then blew across an open flame, proving at a stroke, as Bill Bryson amusingly put it, that hydrogen is indeed explosively combustible, and that eyebrows are not necessarily a permanent feature of one's face. Rosier and his colleagues are also entered into the history books as the world's first fatal victims of an air accident. Blanchard's flight took only 2.5 hours, something to think about the next time your London to Paris flight is delayed. And on landing, he was awarded a substantial pension by Louis XVI. The king also ordered that the balloon and boat that served as a gondola be hung up in the Église Notre-Dame de Calais. I'd be fascinated to know if any of it still hangs there. The first crossing by a heavier-than-air machine was by another Frenchman, Louis Blériot, flying the rather presumptuously named Blériot 11. Blériot had caught the aviation bug and built a number of experimental aircraft, many of which he crashed. But luckily, he survived without major injury, even when he had an engine failure at a height of around 25 meters, over 80 feet. The aircraft had entered a spiraling nosedive, and in desperation, Blériot climbed out of his seat and threw himself towards the tail. By shifting the center of gravity, he caused the aircraft to partially pull out of the dive, and it came to Earth in a more or less horizontal attitude. Not a technique I would recommend to any budding pilots listening. By the time he got to number 11, he had a pretty good design. In fact, quite an advanced one for the time. Having already made some very successful long-distance flights, despite receiving third-degree burns on one of them when the asbestos insulation on the engine's exhaust came loose. The heat burned through his shoe, and despite being in considerable pain, Blériot flew for 30 minutes in this state and was only brought to Earth when his engine failed. The injury took over 2 months to heal. The temptation to cross the Channel came from a prize being offered by the Daily Mail. It had recently been doubled from £500 to £1,000, and there were a considerable number of contenders, including Wilbur Wright, for this princely sum. Hubert Latham was the first to try, but the engine of his Antoinette IV monoplane failed only 6 miles from his destination, and his entry into the record books was a less than remarkable one for being the first aircraft to ditch at sea. It was early on the morning of July the 25th, 1909, when Blériot woke. He was feeling a bit pessimistic about the weather, but after a good breakfast, his spirits rose enough to make the attempt. His wife embarked on the French destroyer Escopette, which was to escort the flight, and after a quick test flight, Blériot took off from France and set off for England at a couple of 100 feet over the water. Not having a compass, he was relying on the ship to guide him, but he soon overtook it and was alone over the water and in poor visibility. He wrote, "For more than 10 minutes I was alone, isolated, lost in the midst of the immense sea, and I did not see anything on the horizon or a single ship." The poor visibility and rain did help a little by keeping his engine cool, and eventually he spied the white cliffs of Dover. Sadly, the gusty conditions made his landing less than perfect, and he damaged his undercarriage and broke his propeller, but he was safely down. The flight had taken a mere 36 minutes and 30 seconds, and earned him £27 and 8 shillings a minute. The flight made Blériot and his impressive moustache an overnight celebrity and brought success to his aircraft manufacturing company. The British, feeling a bit put out that all the success was coming from the other side of the Channel, rather belatedly entered the record books with the first double crossing, when Charles Rolls, of Rolls-Royce fame, took off on June the 2nd, 1910, in his Wright Flyer, and flew for 95 minutes, making the non-stop flight over to France and back, which included the first eastbound crossing, a feat that earned him the Royal Aero Club's gold medal. Sadly, Rolls was to enter the history books later, at the young age of 32, as the first Briton to be killed in a powered aircraft when the tail of his Wright Flyer broke off during a display he was performing at Bournemouth. By that time, 10 others had died in various aircraft accidents around the globe. Out of interest, the Honourable Charles Stuart Rolls only sported a small, well-trimmed moustache. Later, the same year as Rolls' record flight, the first passenger aircraft crossing was made, this time by the American pilot John Moisant in his two-seat Blériot 11. His passengers consisted of Albert Filot, his engineer, and Moisant's tabby cat, Mademoiselle Fifi. Moisant had proclaimed himself the king of aviators, but had very little experience. Indeed, his crossing of the Channel was only his 6th flight. Only 4 months later, he was to die making a preparatory flight in his attempt to win the 1910 Michelin Cup for the longest sustained flight. He was attempting to land near New Orleans when a gust of wind threw him from his aircraft, and he fell 25 feet, landing on his head, which was unadorned by a moustache, breaking his neck. It didn't take long for the ladies to catch up when in 1912 Harriet Quimby took off from Dover and, 59 minutes later, landed on a beach about 25 miles from Calais. The press had dubbed her the Dresden China Aviatrix because of her petite stature and fair skin, and being one of the very few lady pilots, she earned a considerable amount for professional appearances flying her Blériot. She apparently capitalized on her femininity by wearing trousers tucked into high lace boots, accentuated by a plum-colored satin blouse, necklace, and antique bracelet. She drew crowds wherever she competed in cross-country meets and races, until later in 1912, when she was flying William Willard, the organizer of the 3rd Annual Boston Aviation Meet. At an altitude of 1,000 feet, the aircraft unexpectedly pitched violently forwards. Both Willard and Quimby were thrown from their seats and fell to their deaths, whilst the pilotless plane glided down and lodged itself in the mud. The First World War brought some less welcome crossings when the first airship, a Zeppelin, made its way over to bomb Britain. But in happier times after the war, some more interesting flights were made. The first autogyro crossed in 1928, flown by the Spanish pilot Juan de la Cierva, first Count of La Cierva. Again, a channel crossing record holder was to die in an aviation accident, but this time it was more conventional when the Count perished in a KLM DC-2 crash. The aircraft hit a house during a takeoff from Croydon Airfield. Neither Harriet Quimby nor the first Count of La Cierva had a moustache. The first glider pilot to achieve a successful crossing was Lissant Beardmore, who, despite his name, only wore a very short moustache, of the type favoured by a particular German dictator. In his aircraft, named Sandra, and sporting a Union flag and an Automobile Association badge, how the AA were going to help him start his glider, I'm not sure, he was desperate to ensure that a British citizen was the first to achieve this milestone. Apparently, on June the 20th, 1932, an Austrian was going to attempt a double crossing to win a £1,000 Daily Express prize, so Beardmore took off from Limp the day before. He was towed aloft by an Avro 504 to 12,000 feet before being cast off over Folkestone to secure for Britain the honour of the first crossing. Sadly, in his rush to beat the Austrian to the honour of the achievement, Beardmore failed to take a barograph and obtain official observers, so the British Gliding Association never officially recognised the flight. However, in keeping with others who have claimed a Channel crossing flight record, Lissant Beardmore was to perish in a flying accident at Reading in June of 1936. The first helicopter to fly across this short stretch of water was a German wartime machine captured at the end of the Second World War. The US intended to bring captured aircraft back to the States on board ship, but only had room for one example of the Fock Arcgelis FA-223 Dragon, and intended to destroy the others. The RAF objected, and with the aid of the Luftwaffe helicopter test pilot, Helmut Gerstenhauer, plus 2 observers, they flew the machine from Cherbourg to RAF Beaulieu in Hampshire, thereby, almost by accident, claiming the record. The Channel has been crossed many more times in various flying machines since, including a human-powered aircraft in 1979, an electric aircraft in 1981, free fall in a wingsuit in 2003, by jetpack in 2008, and a flying car in 2017. I'm glad to say that most of the more recent record breakers are still walking amongst us. The state of their upper lip, sadly, remains something of a mystery. If you enjoyed this story.
We did. So,
yes.
Yeah, I'm just trying to decide how to come over here and turn all of our video back on. That ended a little bit faster than I thought it was going to.
Just keep pressing buttons.
Yeah, I know. I've been trying to do something here.
Things were a bit quicker than expected. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Ooh, how embarrassing. Yes. All right. Remove from stream. There we go. Okay.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello. There you guys are.
What I was trying to do, I just noticed a comment in the chat room, on the YouTube chat room, and somebody was mentioning that she did not have a spanner. So
It
I
was
was trying
Mila.
to, I know. So I was trying to take care of that, and then all of a sudden you were starting to end your PT, and went, darn it. Oh, well.
There's got to be something to do with priorities there, but for the moment, I can't think what.
I was actually thinking more his ability to multitask.
That too.
Mm.
Yes.
It's not as easy as it looks, folks. Not as easy as it looks.
Even with a moustache that fine?
Yeah. So, what is the connection then? Did you do some kind of scientific research on? Was it a lower number of people crashing that had mustaches, or?
I was just taken by the moustaches of the early crossers because they are very impressive. And sadly, the number of decent moustaches dwindled with the years. So I thought it was just very sad, apart from the fact they kept killing themselves. That was also very sad. But
Many
no,
sad things.
exactly. Many sad things, yes. I couldn't form any real conclusion as to the success of moustache-bearing crossers.
Okay, I thought you were trying to make some kind of correlation happen there.
If only I had achieved it. No, it
Yeah.
just seemed like an interesting observation.
Well, I can say right now that those of us with mustaches on the video and on this audio podcast at this moment outnumber those that do not have them.
That's very true.
I feel so left out right now. So sad.
Yeah.
Sorry, Steph. But you
I
know
might
what?
point out that the first crosser, his moustache was so fine, it actually went beyond the width of his head.
Wow.
Stuck out a long
Is that
way.
considered cheating? I mean, is there any aerodynamic force from?
Yeah, I was curious to know
that.
but in a balloon, I don't know.
Yeah.
You're not really piloting it anyway. You're just floating
Oh, boy.
along, just letting the wind
Here we go.
take you. So,
Oh boy.
All right. Well, another excellent one. Thank you, Nick, for that.
I loved it. That was great fun looking that one up. Thanks.
Yeah.
I love all the historical stuff too at the very onset. Just
Mhm.
like geography and
Yeah, I was a bit dismayed by the poor lady pilot who managed to fall out of her aircraft along with the person that was running the air show, Willard, and 4,000 feet. Oh my God.
yeah. That's
Yeah.
what
Perhaps if she'd worn a skirt, she might have survived. I don't know.
the trousers tucked under her boots. Is that what
Yeah,
she was?
that wouldn't have provided a lot of drag, sadly.
I just still don't understand exactly how, with all those double crossings going on, how they could trust one another.
Yes.
Very good point.
I was
Very
thinking the same thing,
Excellent
actually.
point, Michael. That's why we have you here today.
All right. Okay. I think we should move on, try to get some more feedback knocked out. What do you all think?
Let's go.
Yeah.
Now, we talked on our last show about, several items, and another podcasting co-host was listening, and he was listening in his car, and he decided to go ahead and respond to us while driving, and I'm sure it was perfectly safe. And we are going to play his video, so bear with me. I have to go over here and share my screen again, but I'm hoping this works. Let's see. Fingers crossed. And take it away, you podcaster person. Okay. Here we go. Why is it not? Here we go.
Hey guys, I'm listening to the Plain Stupid podcast.
I know.
Last episode. Thanks for including us in the
It's
picture.
not. Hang on. The audio is not routed properly. Okay.
Hey guys, I'm listening to the Plain Stupid podcast. Last episode. Thanks for including us in the picture. That officially means that the war is on for the memes. But I was listening to the story about the Piper Aerostar that went down, got fueled by K, but we didn't go too in depth into it. It is sometimes a little bit harder now with some of the smaller aircraft are also outfitted with turboprop. So like a Meridian, a Mirage look exactly the same. You have a lot of experimentals like Lancers. It looks just like a Columbia, but it's got a turboprop on front. So a lot of the smaller GA aircraft are getting turboprop. Like you guys said, it is clearly marked on there. The fuel nozzle doesn't fit. It's almost impossible, because I do fuel a lot of airplanes, and it's almost impossible to get that Jet A nozzle into the 100 low lead. So another thing is the city FBOs. So there are more cities that are running FBOs than you would think, and I used to live out in Clovis, and the city took that over because they saw how much money was taking money the FBO was taking on fuel sales out there, and they can get that revenue plus the tax revenue. So my local 3 airports are all city airports, and they're run by the city. They're city linemen, city FBO operators, and as well as many of the airports that I fly in. And then the last thing, sort of, I didn't get.
Well, that didn't work out very well, did it?
You stopped.
Rather abrupt.
Yeah, but it's not supposed to stop.
No, there was definitely more to that.
Yeah, and
Is it there?
172.7 megabytes in the other movie.
Yeah, did it get split up somehow into 2 movies?
Oh, perhaps when I was doing the conversion, it just failed at that point. Oh yeah, because it says 133 out of 133.
33.
Okay.
I just want to comment that that's a palatial car.
It's the same car as mine.
Oh, is
Same
it a
type
Jeep?
of car.
Is it a Jeep?
I was thinking it was one of those Toyota
Highlanders or something like
yeah,
that.
not Highlander. The one that's or maybe it is a Highlander.
It's a Wrangler.
Okay, excellent.
It looks.
Armando has fine taste in automobiles. I might
Yes,
add.
he does.
It does look palatial. I just have to say that.
It's spacious on the interior. Yes.
Probably the
would it be fair to say that I would fit comfortably, Dr. Steph?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Let's see. What should I do here? Let me do this.
That's why I own a Jeep product, by the way.
I'm going to play this, and we'll just hear the audio. No, I don't want to download it. Okay, I'm going to play it from this one over here, and I'll use the original one. Why am I not hearing this now? I see it playing. Oh, and this one's even shorter.
Can we see through our ears? Then we might be able to hear it then.
This one is this is a short one as well. That's weird.
It's all Armando's fault.
No, it's not his fault. Because I watched the whole darn thing through. So he did send the whole thing in its complete. Okay, let's see. He sent it via email, right? Is that right?
No, it came through Messenger.
Oh. Crap. Let me see if I can find it somewhere.
It looks like there was 2 sent. Maybe
no. That's part of what I had to deal with to get it to play in a Chrome tab. I had to convert it from a .move to a. Or here, let me try this again. To a M4V to get it to play in the Chrome tab. But now I'm going to see. This might actually work. Yes.
Hey guys, I'm listening to the Plain Stupid podcast last episode. Thanks for including us in the picture. That officially means that the war is on for the memes. But I was listening to the story about the Piper Aerostar that went down, got fueled by Jet A, and I wholeheartedly agree with you.
You guys can't hear that?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
I can hear it.
I can hear it just fine.
What did you say, Nick?
Oh, I just said we'll win the meme war.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Sorry for the interruption.
In that no pilot would ever tell a lineman, yes, put the wrong fuel in my airplane. Just some additional points, and we sort of talked about this on PTUK, but we didn't go too in depth into it. It is sometimes a little bit harder now with some of the smaller aircraft are also outfitted with turboprop. So like a Meridian, a Mirage look exactly the same. You have a lot of experimentals like Lancers. It looks just like a Columbia, but it's got a turboprop on front. So a lot of the smaller GA aircraft are getting turboprop. Like you guys said, it is clearly marked on there. The fuel nozzle doesn't fit. It's almost impossible, because I do fuel a lot of airplanes, and it's almost impossible to get that Jet A nozzle into the 100 low lead. So another thing is the city FBOs. So there are more cities that are running FBOs than you would think, and I used to live out in Clovis, and the city took that over because they saw how much money was taking. Money the FBO was taking on fuel sales out there, and they can get that revenue plus the tax revenue. So my local 3 airports are all city airports, and they're run by the city. They're city linemen, city FBO operators, and as well as many of the airports that I fly in. And then the last thing, I didn't get into this in PTUK, but the fuel sump procedures. So after this accident, kind of went on YouTube and started looking at, can you really discern Jet A when it's mixed with 100 low lead? And then we ran our own experiment, just like kind of following the lead of one of the YouTube guys at our local FBO there in Statesville. And we took a bucket and we took a water bottle, a clear water bottle, plastic water bottle. So we did all of the combinations of filling it with 100 low lead halfway, and then it's the clear blue fuel with the smell, and then put Jet A in there, and it still stayed blue. And in that little fuel tester cup, you would not, if you held that up to the light, it's a little bit lighter, but you can't actually, the blue dye also dyes the Jet A, and you would think it separates like fuel and water, but it doesn't. It actually just mixes in there. If you look closely, there's a tiny little film, but again, on a tiny little Jet A or general aviation fuel tester, we weren't able to tell. And then we did it the other way, where we put Jet A in to the plastic bottle and in the bucket, so probably a half gallon or so, and then put the 100 low lead, and you also couldn't tell. So the only way we decided that you can tell the difference between Jet A 100 low lead is just the evaporation. So 100 low lead will evaporate in just 30 seconds or so, and it takes about 2 to 3 minutes for the Jet A to evaporate. So unless you actually put your fingers on it and figure out that something's wrong and it doesn't evaporate off your fingers, the whole sump test is completely debunked. Water comes out great, like it looks like a big snot down there in the bottom of the fuel, but 100 low lead and Jet A mixed together does not show up on a fuel tester as easily as you would think. Anyway, let me go listen to the rest of the show. See you guys.
Thank you, Armando, for taking the time to do that video, and really good stuff there. And what do you say about the meme is on or whatever?
Oh,
Yeah,
well, you'll
well,
recall
I mean,
our the artwork for the last episode.
Yeah. So I guess you took offense to that. Sorry, Armando.
Oh, I don't see why his was the only picture that looked vaguely like himself.
Nick,
And we do have an explanation. Yeah, we do have an explanation as to how that came about.
Yeah, if you want to know all the details about how we kind of brainstormed that and how it kind of evolved into that, just drop us a note.
It really has nothing to do with any of our beloved fellow podcasters.
not at all.
So, sorry.
Just the short Now, shall we even go into it?
No, they can.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We'll let you know if you really want to know how it kind of morphed into that artwork. So it was purely innocent, of course.
It may have been alcohol fueled.
Well, maybe.
Of course
Yeah.
it was. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Very innocent.
Which meme are we talking about?
The artwork for the last episode.
Of me?
No, that was 2 episodes ago, I think.
The last one, Dana.
The last one.
396.
396. Okay.
The one
You
I-
remember it, right?
I was there. Yeah, I was there.
Do you remember the artwork, though?
No, I actually never did see the artwork. Artwork. Art.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I guess
Oh, I had a pretty immediate
hold on. I know,
message
I-
from Carlos about
Wait a
it.
minute.
So he knows the story a little bit.
Hold
That's
on,
good.
I did see it. It wasn't a big deal. Well, I guess I'm behind the times. Sorry.
All right. Let's see. I think we should move on. We only have under 30 minutes now remaining in the show. So
How many can we get through?
We're gonna. I don't know. Let's try to crack through as many as we can. 5. Dave, family question for you and private pilot license learned. This is Dave, the AMT from a major U.S. airline in Cleveland. I left some feedback a while ago about relationships between maintenance and pilots. I am messaging you today to proudly share with you that I have earned my private pilot certificate.
Woohoo!
And there we go.
Fantastic news. Yay.
And let's see, it was quite the journey, and I'm extremely proud to have earned this accomplishment. The question I have for you today is about family life. I have a young family with 4 children, one born just a month ago. My concern with making the jump from maintenance to pilot is how does it work with your family life, and how was it raising children with a career field where you tend to be gone quite often? Thank you again for an amazing show and all advice you may have to offer. Fly safe, Dave. All right. Who wants to start with that?
Yeah, I'll have it a pile in there. I think when you start an aviation career, it's very much a vocation. And as much as we would all love to think we put our families first, there are times when you're going to have to make a certain amount of adjustment, and your family is going to have to expect you to be missing a great deal of the time, particularly in the early years. So long as you are all prepared for that, and as long as you realize that it's not going to be like that forever, eventually you'll get senior enough to be able to, pick and choose your flights. Then, you'll get through those early years. But I think those early years are probably going to be pretty tough for someone who has a well-established family routine and take a strong part in their everyday family activities. I cannot remember the number of birthdays and Christmases where I have been calling in from the other side of the world.
Yeah, that's one of the downsides to this job, and there are ways to manage it as you get more seniority. If you're working for a seniority-based airline, one of the things that some folks do for airlines, major airlines like the one that Dana and I fly for, are to get a job in the training department, and you are home a lot more that way. You have a little bit more control of your schedule. You may end up actually being away from home more, working in the training department, but you are home more nights. And also, as you get more senior, you can, if the airplane that you're flying has the kind of trips where they only have like 1-day trips, like you go somewhere and back, or 3 or 4 legs, and then you're back at home that night. That is a way to manage that as well. But when you first start off, as Nick just said, you're not going to have a lot of seniority, and you're going to have to, do the best you can. And the other piece of advice I would have is that when you actually are home, don't, put your suitcase over to the side and take off your uniform, put on your golfing clothes, and head out and go and golf for 4 or 5 hours at a time, or be gone. This is when you need to be home. If you're home, be home and be a part of the family, and do what you can to help out your spouse or your partner, and do as much as you can to be a part of the family.
And I know I came to this late, and I don't know if it was mentioned yet, but one of the tips for Dave that I would truly recommend, not being a pilot and not having this experience directly, is there's a specific Plain Tales that Nick did interviewing Julie that really explained a lot of this. And I think that was a magnificent interview and a wonderful bunch of information. And I would really recommend that he go back and find that episode or find it in Plain Tales on the Airline Pilot Guy podcast website and listen to that.
Maybe we can even locate it and put it in the show notes, because I agree with you, Micah.
Yes. Steph can locate that and tell me what the link is, and I'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah. Steph, you have your work cut out for you.
Yeah.
Work.
All
right. So, Dave, if I can give you a piece of advice as a junior guy, and I've been a very junior guy for, well, all of my career pretty much, just the way timing has worked out for me. There are a couple things. Number one, you have to be happy with what your choices are. All right. So if you decide to stay in maintenance, great career path. You probably have some seniority now. You have probably fairly good quality life. But if your heart is truly in, and when I say heart, I have to say it so people understand me, heart is truly in being a pilot, then you're going to have to make some sacrifices. Okay. So if you've always wanted to be a pilot and don't want to go, to the retirement and say, well, I'm missing that little piece of my life. That piece was, I always wanted to fly. If being a private pilot's a great thing for you, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, people enjoy their entire lives working as a professional and then having the opportunity to go on a weekend and fly an airplane as a hobby. And, that's where I took my hobby and turned it into my profession. All right. So if that makes sense to you. So being junior has its downsides, right? But being that I'm here in the position, and of course, I always give Jeff a bit of a hard time, always do, because he's very senior in my category. I'm very junior, but I still have the opportunity to sit in the seat and still sit there and say, I'm a captain and I'm flying for the airline that I want to fly for, and I'm enjoying my life as my dream has always been to be here flying this airplane for this company. So there's a lot to be said for that. There's going to be a lot of sacrifice. There's going to be a lot of missed birthdays, as Nick said, a lot of missed anniversaries, a lot of missed whatever at this point. However, being that said, my career path has been completely different from most of the younger generation. That is, like, for example, the guy I'm flying with. I mean, he got hired 3 years ago, and he's 43% on the airplane. So he can hold weekends off, holidays off, and hold whatever he wants as a first officer. And I have that choice too. I could go back to be a first officer and have an incredible quality of life and control what I want to do as far as schedule. So, it's all choices. It's all sacrifice. And if you can accept that sacrifice and move forward with what you want to do with your life, whether it be in maintenance or if you really have that burning desire to fly, I would encourage you to go ahead and fly, because honestly, unless there's a major mishap in the world and or anything that financially stops everything, there truly is a pilot shortage. I see it all over the place. Now, it's not critical, but it's certainly there are a lot of opportunities in this business, and that will give you the opportunity to either have that quality of life at a fairly rapid pace, or if not a rapid pace, a decent pace, far better than what I've had over the past 20 years of my career. So I wish you the best of luck, and if it's in your heart to do it, go for it.
All right, thank you. I hope that helped, Dave, and let us know how your decision-making goes. All right, let's continue on. Try to knock as many as we can, please. Doug, item 6. On Friday, September 27th, I found myself all caught up on my podcast listening. Since later in the day, my wife and I were planning on flying to Kilo Tango Victor Charlie, Cherry Capital Airport in Traverse City, Michigan, I decided to listen to the ATC feed on liveatc.net. During my listening, I heard the attached transmissions that kind of took me aback. I've done my best with my basic audio editing skills to stitch all the relevant transmissions together for your ease of listening. Can you comment on how something like this happens and give some insight as to what exactly happened? What factors are considered in determining which flights are more important than others? Apparently, this flight from Traverse City, Michigan to Chicago was deemed less important than some other flight. I did not envy the flight crew having to tell a plane full of passengers holding short of the departure runway that they were not going to really leave and they were going to have to taxi back to the terminal 5 more hours spent in the terminal before they were going to leave again. Does Dana have a twin brother that works for Air Wisconsin? This sounds like a scenario that would happen to him. This feedback may require a guest appearance from Dispatcher Mike. Yeah, I should have gotten Mike on the call, or at least given us some feedback. But Mike, if you're listening, maybe you could add to what we're going to say about this. And I think probably the best thing to do right now, before I go any further, is to go ahead and play this live atc.net excerpt and see what happened to this Air Wisconsin flight.
Chain 3000, expect flight level 24017 and set departure. Departure frequency Minneapolis Center 132.9, spot 1607, and I got an edict time of 1539 Zulu.
All right, clear to Chicago at 5-3000, expect flight level 24010 minutes after departure. Departure frequency 132.9, spot 1607. 1607, and edict is 1539. Any updates on when that's changing?
Scott's 4855, read correct. As far as I know, the edicts are staying. They just started popping out. There was a rumor of a ground stop from the previous Embraer that just called up, but I haven't seen anything yet.
All right, awesome. Thanks for the heads up. We'll plan for that. Ground, Wisconsin 4855 will be pushing soon.
Air Wisconsin 4855, roger, push back to your discretion. Advisory taxi.
Wisconsin 4855, ready to taxi.
Air Wisconsin 4855, runway 28, taxi via Golf.
Runway 28 via Golf, Wisconsin 4855.
Wisconsin 4855, yep, on tower.
Yes, sir, we're ready when you are.
Wisconsin 4855, just got offline with TMU. They printed out a new expected departure clearance time for you at 2033 Zulu. I guess your company subbed you for that time for another aircraft or something, so you can hold a position there, hold short of runway 28, and if you want to give your company a call to try to sort that out, that's fine.
All right, thanks for the heads up. We'll get back to you if we figure out anything and when we're ready. 4855.
Thank you.
And just to double check, this is still Wisconsin 4855. We just changed voices here. It's 2033, correct?
Wisconsin 4855, affirmative. Expect departure clearance time 2033.
Okay, we're just double checking, 5 hours. We're making sure we got it printed out right. Okay, we will check with company and see what they say.
Yeah, no problem. We double and triple check too with TMU, so yeah, just let us know what they say.
I can imagine you guys double check that one too. So okay, we'll find out what's going on. Thanks.
Okay, to save some time, the whole recording will be in the show notes if you want to listen to the entire thing. Basically, they checked with their company, and their company said, "Yeah, you got swapped off or swapped out with another flight. Apparently, there was more priority on the other flight. They used their slot to get into O'Hare." And it was kind of cute because they said, "Are you ready to taxi back to the terminal again?" "Yeah, give me a few minutes. I need to come up with a way to explain this to my passengers who had already been delayed." And so, yeah, that happens. This is not something the FAA does. It's something the company does internally. And Dispatcher Mike or Fleet Manager Mike would be really good at explaining how they make these kind of decisions. But there are times when there is just there's no easy way to say it. There might be a flight that is more important in the eyes of the folks that are behind the scenes in the operational control centers at the various airlines. For instance, perhaps a flight that has a lot more passengers, and maybe a great percentage of these passengers are connecting to international flights leaving Chicago O'Hare. And in that case, the much lower number of or fewer passengers on the Air Wisconsin flight, they look at all these things, the connections and international connections and that kind of thing, and they just make the decision that we hate to do it, but we have to give priority to this other flight. So it does happen every now and then. So anything to add, Nick?
It's just a miserable job to try and explain that to your passengers. So I feel for the guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Part of being the captain.
Yep.
And Jeff, you explained it really well. We actually at Acme have an air traffic control desk that will actually negotiate and figure out all that data that would, it's what Mike would tell us. And they do exactly what you said. They go ahead and analyze what the best economic solution to the problem is. And sometimes the regionals end up the short end of the stick on that one.
Yeah. Hello. Hello, is that you? Hello.
I don't believe it. Hillel's taking phone calls in the toilet.
Hello, yes, we did install a phone in the toilet. But that doesn't mean that you can use it while we're still recording the show. Okay? So just hang on, just hang out there. Okay. We'll be back with you in just a few minutes. Okay. The show's almost over. Okay. No, you can't use my towel. Thank you. Bye.
Well, that like vintage 90s cordless phone you got there.
I'm surprised you pull up the antenna.
Right.
Hey, it works. Leave me alone. I don't have.
Can you still find batteries for that?
I'm not a high priority in this house.
Can you
in the
still
dungeon.
find batteries for that?
I don't know. When it stops charging, then I'll just throw it away and in a green way, of course. Okay. So
let me ask a quick question, if
yes.
I can, based on that last feedback and tying it in with previous feedback. If that were an Acme flight and as an Air Wisconsin flight, that 5-hour hold means that those pilots and the FAs aren't being paid for 5 hours because they're back at the terminal, even though their day just got. Or would that change? How would that work?
Well, if that had been an Acme flight, I can't discuss Air Wisconsin specifically, but because they had actually closed the door and the beacon was on and the engines were started and they taxied out, you're on the clock then.
Even if the doors reopened?
Yeah.
Back at the terminal?
Yeah, that's you'll show
that's
in
not
and
correct.
Out. Okay.
You show in and out, you show return back to the gate, and the time that the door is open, you will not get paid. Even at Acme.
Don't open the door.
Don't open the door.
Okay. Well, there you go. There's the definitive answer from the guy. You could have just asked him after we stopped the recording.
Well, and the reality is that the biggest concern there is duty day. I mean, seriously, being that I flew in the regional business, if you start looking at those type of delays, it's usually numerous legs that you've flown that day, far more than we tend to do at Acme. And so there's a good chance that crew were going to get close to timing out or timed out.
That's something, of course, the operational control center would be looking at as well. And they just kind of weigh everything and decide what has more weight, and they go with the in the best interest of most passengers. And I think a point needs to be made that there might be some coordination with the ATC desk or our representative at air traffic control, but in this case, it's more to do with the airline itself and not the FAA. This is one of those things that we can't necessarily blame on them. The decision making regarding swapping slots and that kind of thing. Okay. Well, looks like this is going to be the last one. A whole bunch of really, really good feedback that's in the folder here that we're not going to be able to get to today. But you know what we'll do? We'll move it to the next one, and hopefully we'll be able to tackle all of the ones we weren't able to get to today on our next show. This item 17 from Danny. Just a quick hello from the UK. I've been listening for about a year and I love the shows. Part of my essential driving listening material for my journeys between Cardiff and Devon once a week. I found your amusement at the name Effingham highly entertaining and thought you might also find it amusing that the company I own is called, okay, you ready for this one? Effing Technology.
Yes. Love it.
I love it.
Danny, that's
That's amazing.
It seemed like a good idea at the time. And I called it that because that's what a lot of UK people spent their time saying when computers didn't work or don't work.
Perfect.
Keep up the great work, guys and gals. Regards, Danny. He's the managing director at Effing Technology Limited.
By the
Danny,
way,
I think I said that several times today, actually. Just,
have you?
know.
In reference to that city in the UK?
No, in reference to technology at work.
Oh, technology.
Yeah. Having technology.
by the way, Effingham is originated in the late Stone Age, and it got its name from a Saxon noble called Aefing, Aeffing, who built his ham or house in an area now known as Effingham.
Oh, I thought it was the big giant stone that he dropped on his foot and went, effing stone!
He probably did that too.
Yeah. Oh, well. Okay, with that, sadly, we have to leave you for this week. And we look forward to seeing you and hearing from you between now and the next show. And let's see, we have a great website where you can get a lot of information about the show, the crew, the community, all of the podcasts, all the way back to episode number 1 are there. Here's a tip, though. Instead of going to the podcast page and then just going, another page back, it just takes a lot of time. If you're looking for a specific episode, let's say episode 1, we do have a search function on the top menu there if you're viewing from a tablet or a browser on a desktop or a laptop. So please use that search function. And you can do the same thing with the phones, actually, even though you don't see the little search, the magnifying glass on Google or Bing or whatever search engine you use. You can just put in APG001 and guess what? We'll show up in the search results. So that's another way to find the older shows. Still haven't figured out a way to create a separate feed that has all of the shows on it, but we're still working on it. And
this gin is nice.
Is it? Oh,
this gin is lovely. Thank you, Stefan. I'm really enjoying this.
Sweet. All right. We are also on the social medias. Steph?
Social medias, head on over to twitter.com. You can find us there under the handle at APG Crew. All of our individual Twitter information is tagged to the top of that page, or pinned, I should say. You can interact with us there in short form. For longer form, you can head over to facebook.com/airline pilot guy. And we do hope to see you on the social medias.
And if you want to go really long form, you can head over to Slack. And Hillel is the guy that kind of set that up and manages it. And hang on a second. Let me. Yeah, Hillel. It's Hillel. Hillel, it's time.
Sorry, Jeff, I might have used all your skin lotion.
All right. Would you please tell everybody about the Slack?
APG listeners, please join us on our Slack team. Slack is a communication, coordination, and sharing platform that works on your mobile, laptop, or browser. On Slack, we share news and ideas. We suggest episode and plain tales topics. We plan events and meetups. To get into the Slack team, please email me at slack@airlinepilotguy.com. That's SLACK Sierra Lima Alpha Charlie Kilo @airlinepilotguy.com, or send me a tweet with your preferred email address to @Hillel, and I'll send you an invitation. That's Hillel, spelled Hotel India 11 Echo 1, and see you in Slack.
Thank you, Hillel, for that. And you can go ahead and go back to the bathroom now, please.
Oh yeah, Delta P.
And with that, I think it's time to end our show. Again, we look forward to being with you next week. Thanks, everybody in the chat room, for being there for us and providing entertainment. And thank you to Liz, our producer, for helping us put all this stuff together before and after. And with that, wishing you clear skies, unlimited visibility, and tailwinds. Take care, and God bless.
Cheers, y'all.
Bye, everybody.
Happy birthday, Mom.
Shalom from Portland, Maine.
Ba-doom, bam. All right. Excellent. Show is over. Thank goodness.
Tim W. wanted to know what's up with the
Amen.
large pencil.
What is up with that large pencil?
It's for writing
What is that?
prescriptions, obviously.
Big
That's
prescriptions?
a large pencil.
It goes along with my large eraser.
Ah,
Anyway.
very nice.
I've seen the world's largest pencil.
Have you?
It's in the Pencil Museum in
Effingham.
Not actually, funny old thing. It's in the Lake District. I'm trying to think of the name of the town.
The Pencil Museum, really?
Yeah.
I thought that would be in Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania or Pennsylvania.
Nice.
Oh my.
Very good.
Tell you how good this house smells right now.
Oh, I bet
can
it does.
only imagine.
Bet it does.
It doesn't smell as good as this gin. God, I hated gin, and this is really lovely.
Oh,
You were just having not great gin before, I think, is the problem.
That's the problem.
Right. Yes.
You graduated
with hot water. It tastes like.
Yeah, that's
Hot
not a good
water.
way.
What were you drinking?
That's not a good
It
way
was,
to drink gin.
forfeits. It
What?
was alcohol forfeits. You know, when you lose a drinking competition.
Yeah, well, that should probably give you a clue that that's not going to be the best experience with that particular
Well, it
alcohol.
put me off for like 30 years.
Oh man.
Yeah, well.
Well, welcome back to the world of gin.
What is it? Gin, the beverage of sin. You'll never go out the way you came in.
Wow. That's a good
Aren't you
one.
glad you had me on today?
I am very glad, Micah. You're very entertaining and knowledgeable. So we do appreciate your input. And thank you again to everybody in the chat room for helping us answer questions and pose others, and for just being there for us. And what else to say other than we're going to try this again next week? Not sure when, but we'll hopefully have a date and time nailed down as soon as possible, and you'll be able to find that information on the APG calendar, airlinepilotguy.com/calendar. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I
Anything
don't
else?
put anything on it because I don't have anything to put on it anymore.
Oh, we can just put random things on. Make
yeah,
things up.
you can just put
Make things up. Well, like a meetup in New York, and
Yeah.
I'm not there.
Well, that
well, maybe
actually
not
might,
things that would impact other
yeah,
people.
that might
directly.
actually affect other people in a negative way.
Okay.
More than just you being on the show. Just kidding. You know, I'm joking. I love you, bro. Bruh.
I think he's not talking to you.
I know. I can tell. I'm already feeling it.
Yeah. It's getting
Oh,
cold.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think it's now time for us to
Yeah,
go
Jeff's
ahead. and-
gotta go.
Oh yeah, you've got a hard clock. 2 minutes, Jeff. Get out of here.
Yeah, I got a couple of minutes here. So let me end the broadcast. We'll have our little post-show get together, and we'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
See you next
Everybody,
time.
bye,
everyone.
thanks for coming.
Keep living,
So long.
keep living.
Thanks for all the fish.
See you next
Bye.